Yeah, and there's a good chance that what's his face, Matt Taibbi might join it. Who knows? We'll see.
Has anyone invited Kim, or is Kim sleeping? Mario, do you know?
I'm bringing him up now. I'm just I need a few minutes to bring him up. I've pinged him.
Yep.
Kim's always fashionably late. Really quick, Billboard had his hand up, so I don't know if he's still up here or if my screen's glitched, but
I'm here. Thank you. I was trying to be Canadian and just put my hand up and be polite. But yeah, I travel around North America talking about puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones being given to kids, all that sort of stuff. I'm very factual about it. I don't exaggerate because truth is already stranger than fiction. And very early this year, Twitter made my account adult content, as though I'm talking about or issuing porn. And so you have to be 18 to follow me. All of my media is still classified as sensitive content. So hopefully someone at Twitter is listening and they can fix this, because it's not just my account. There's a whole bunch of accounts out there which are still censored. All of their pictures, all of their videos are classified as sensitive content. And when your account's 18 plus, it makes it really hard for people to follow you. Because,
and worse still, there's no way to untag it. There's no way to appeal it.
Yeah, I've appealed it, and I received a response from Twitter a couple weeks ago where they literally said, we don't have a method of appealing this, so there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, right. They basically permanently lock you into this mode. I've known, like, Redux magazine, one of the writers there, she was, one of her accounts, her first account, was permanently flagged in that mode, and she had to make a new account in order to bypass it because there was literally no way for her to even appeal it. She just talked to Twitter, and they're like, yeah, your account's gonna fucked.
Yeah, it's extremely annoying. And interestingly, this happened to me in early March, and all I had done was issue a screenshot of a detransitioner story. So this was a girl who had suffered all sorts of harm. She'd had her breasts cut off as a minor. She had massive regrets. She'd suffered from borderline personality disorder. One of the people who retweeted it was Ben Shapiro, and I guess I got mass reported or whatever. But it was literally just a story of a detransitioner, and I've issued lots of these things. So yeah, absolutely. There's Twitter employees just trying to shut down accounts like mine. And it'd be nice if they'd stop one of these days, because it's really hurting my...
I don't think they even work there anymore. I think that the tools that were given to Elon Musk are just insufficient in being able to lift a lot of these bans. I mean, otherwise he would have done that already. That's the thing. I mean, I've told him personally that we're shadow banned. And he's like, yeah, we're going to have to deal with it. I think they don't have the tools, right? That is one of the biggest challenges that he faces right now, is that they don't even have the tools to detect bots. So for many, many years, they were lying about how many bots there were on this platform. There was just no way for them to even detect it. They were just pulling numbers out of thin air and claiming falsely. Like, they sold this company to him under false pretenses. That's just a fact. I mean, he took the hit anyway. Probably shouldn't have had to pay $44 billion. Probably the value is like 20 billion maybe. But,
But then why did he, if that's true though, why did he go ahead with the transaction?
Because he has to. The law says
despite
that
he
could have actually he had to.
No, but
why did he negotiate it down though? He could have probably
he tried to. So here's the thing: when you make a deal, right, with however much money, whether it's $1 million or if it's $1 billion, or in this case, $44 billion, if you want to change the arrangement of the deal, you literally have to cancel that deal and make a new one. You can't just like alter
there's a new tweet out by Barry if you want to read it.
I'll read it. Yeah, I'll read it if it actually loads for me.
But I think the walkaway, this is Grant. I think the walkaway.
I got the new tweet out. So Barry Weiss says, take for example Stanford's Dr. J, who argued that COVID lockdowns would harm children. Twitter secretly placed him on a trends blacklist, which prevented his tweets from trending.
Fascinating. So they were actually blocking not a COVID denier. He's actually a legitimate doctor, and he, there's a great article on him that I wrote up actually on Rebel News. You should check it out, which I'll probably link to at some point. He was very critical of the lockdowns. That was one of the things he was critical of, and so apparently they blocked him from being able to trend from his
shadow.
view.
Is that that's a shadow ban? Yeah?
Not surprising.
Grant, you were saying something before Harrison jumped in.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to say that I think his breakup fee to walk away was $1 billion. There were some articles written that suggested that he couldn't just walk away from a breakup fee, but that's exactly what a breakup fee is. And let's say if it went to double that or 5 times that, $5 billion is still less than $44 billion. So it can't be because he couldn't walk away. He has to see other value. I know I have personally been shadow banned and or blocked or stopped or warned on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, almost every platform. After I did the Robert Malone interview, I was shut down. My audio was shut down by Instagram 40 minutes into the presentation. YouTube then removed the content. We threw it up on Amazon on our other servers. It still lives there today for the full interview. But somebody made a comment about Elon bought this because he was being shadow banned. Like, I believe in all the conspiracies, but like, I mean,
that's the least likely one.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
That wasn't my comment. That's actually misconstruing what I said. I didn't say that he bought it because he was shadow banned. I said that he was likely going to be suspended from the platform at the rate things were going had he not bought Twitter. And I stand by that statement.
I know, but that's a big price to pay. I mean,
Well, she didn't say that he bought it because of it. She said that he probably would have gotten suspended. It's not why he bought it, though.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Don't miss what you said. Yeah.
I think had they suspended him, he would have easily gone and created his own social media platform called X or whatever he wanted to call it, and it would have done well. I thought number 4 was what we just read.
No. Number 4 is out right now. He says, or consider the popular right-wing talk show host Dan Bongino, who at one point was slapped with a search blacklist. There you go. And if you look at his account, the screenshot that she tweeted out, it's got verified, active, notifications spike. So that's interesting. So if he gets a lot of notifications, it's going to say that you're being, added a lot. Search blacklist, Twitter blue verified, multiple accounts, strike count 0, NSFW view. That means he has that turned on, and something called SPMA. So I wonder what SPMA means. It doesn't really.
Where are you reading from right now?
Her timeline. Literally her timeline.
Yeah, it's pinned at the top. So I have multiple people asking me, are the Twitter files dropping? And yes, they currently are dropping. It's very wise. So it's pinned up at the top. You guys can click there and you can read through the thread. It says thread, the Twitter files, part 2, Twitter's secret blacklists. So they were essentially doing exactly what a lot of us were called conspiracy theorists for believing they were doing, which was blacklisting us for talking about certain topics, on top of, suspending people, obviously, including our own sitting president at the time.
Yep.
But look at the photo right there. Where on the photo you can see like everything Twitter tracks from a profile where, it's verified, it's active, but are they running multiple accounts, not safe for work view, search blacklist, notification spike, all those different areas and buttons that Twitter can press on a single account.
That's right. Yeah, these are the flags that are applied to your account. You're not pressing on these buttons, right? You have to actually press a different button somewhere else. I'm not sure exactly where that is. She hasn't showed that.
Well, it's interesting because they're color coded, right? There's yellow and then there's black. So I wonder what that means.
I guess so. The black ones are just your basic flags, right? Like Twitter blue verified that this person uses multiple accounts, and the easy way to check that is through IP addresses. So, for instance, I have multiple accounts. That's not a secret. I retweet it often. Strike count is how many times you've been struck. Mine's probably going to show like fucking 8 or something. NSFW view is just whether they have NSFW turned on, right? It doesn't actually mean anything. SPMA, I'm not certain what that means. Notification spike is interesting because I think this means that it will shadow ban you if you get a lot of notifications. So, for instance, if one of your tweets goes viral, and it's not often that it goes viral, it will say notification spike. And I think they can use that as a means to track if a person's trending, to track if they're popular or something like that. That's fascinating that it actually does that.
Can I ask
go ahead. Sorry. I just want to point out one interesting thing that I'm noticing from all this. Again, this isn't one side or the other. Why is there a lack of clarity as to whether Twitter did something which implies that execs did it versus a lack of executive oversight over employees doing it? I think this theme was in our
That's something that Elon has directly responded to and said that he plans on having that
Tweet 5
transparency.
Number 5 is
Okay,
up,
go
guys.
ahead.
Number 5
Charlie
is up.
Number 5's up, you guys.
Yeah,
Charlie Kirk, do not amplify. Basically, tweet 5. They were shadow banning Charlie Kirk.
So go ahead, Ian. Go ahead.
That is what he said. Yeah. So I'll.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry, I missed it, Harrison. Go ahead.
Yeah, it says here Twitter has set the account of conservative activist Charlie Kirk to do not amplify. That means you're shadow banned. That's essentially what that means. All right. It has notification spike, recent abuse strike, and do not amplify. That's a big one. Do not amplify. I wonder why.
And does it explain why he got?
No, it doesn't. No. It's kind of hard to tell if that actually means do not amplify in the sense that that you're shadow banned, or if it means do not put you in the trending topics. Because here's the thing: before Elon took over, there was a team of people, curators, who would often curate feeds, right? Like they would literally tell you a story of why a certain thing is trending, and these feeds were curated. Like you would see specific tweets of the first one that popped off, maybe a take from a politician, maybe a take from some influencer, some big YouTuber or something, and it would show up in that curated feed. It would basically, they're telling you a story of why something is trending. And it's pretty useful, right? And I used to be on that for a while. They would always feature my tweets because I happen to talk about everything. And then one day they stopped doing that. I think that's when they realized who I was, and they were like, "Do not amplify." So there's a chance that mine says "Do not amplify" on it, that I'm not supposed to be in the trending topics.
Oh, I'm certain that's the case here, Ian.
When you search, really quickly, when you search the shadow ban websites that tell you whether or not you're shadow banned, if you read beneath, it says there are multiple different types of bans that you can be under. So there's a search suggestion ban, which it says this type of ban causes an account to not populate search suggestions and people search results when it is searched for while being logged out. Not really sure what the logged out part means. And then there's also a regular search ban. It says this type of ban causes your tweets to be hidden from the search results entirely, no matter whether the quality filter is turned on or off. This behavior includes hashtags as well. This type of ban seems to be temporary and limited for active accounts. Mine is still on that, and yours as well, Ian. I've checked. Then there's a ghost ban, and this is the one that was on Elon Musk's account in the springtime when he was really mentioning free speech and buying Twitter. He was ghost banned. You couldn't search for his name at all. It says this is what is referred to as a conventional shadow ban or thread banning as well. It comprises a search ban while threads are completely ripped apart by hiding reply tweets of the affected user to others. Everything will look perfectly normal to the affected user, but many others will not be able to see reply tweets of the affected user at all. Reasons for this ban include behavior like excessive tweeting or following. Again, this type of ban seems to be temporary. And then there's reply deboosting, which we all see at the bottom of tweets when it says show more or more replies. That's where a lot of us get hidden. And yeah, that has a big long list of reasons that they do that. You can search Twitter shadow bans to find this. Go ahead.
Twitter denied that it did such things in 2018. Twitter's Vijay Gadde, then head of legal policy and trust, and Kayvon,
number
head
6
of product,
is out.
That's what he's reading.
We do not shadow ban.
Oh, sorry.
Added, and we certainly do not shadow ban based on political viewpoints or ideology.
Yeah, that is actually up on the FAQ still right now to this day.
Right, yeah, it's a straight up lie because as Project Veritas proved when they interviewed a senior Twitter engineer undercover, they asked him, what about the shadow bans, right? I mean, they're pretending to be liberals. They're like, hey, what about the shadow bans? You kind of don't want to amplify all these Trump supporters, all these crazy QAnons. And he said, oh no, we shadow ban the people we don't like based on political views.
So I'm wondering, do you think that right now, obviously they're sharing conservative accounts and I imagine there's a disproportionate number of conservative accounts that have been shadow banned. However, do you think in this Twitter files drop, we will see some, super hyper left-leaning accounts, like say Antifa accounts or something like that?
No, I don't think so. I think the only real liberal that's been affected by this are the Krasenstein brothers accounts.
Hey, I'm here right now.
Thank you guys for the integrity of the call. Really quick, you guys, for the integrity of the call, just in between speaking, try to mute yourselves because there is audio backfeed that cuts out the person who's speaking. Just a reminder.
I'm willing to bet that there were a few sacrificial lambs that Twitter banned that were left-leaning just to say that it wasn't politically oriented.
That's what Brian. So Brian said that same story to me months ago before Elon even considered buying Twitter. He's like, Mario, I got banned, and I think the only reason they did that is to kind of show that they're
Tweet 7 is out.
It out.
Yeah, Tweet 7's out. I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it. So yeah, hold on. Be patient. Actually, you know what? Why don't you read it? My client decided to crash.
What many people call shadow banning, Twitter executives and employees call visible filtering, or VF. Multiple high-level sources confirmed its meaning.
Ah, okay. That's a clever way to describe shadow banning. And they lied to us about it. They claimed that they were not doing it at all, and yet they did. We now know this to be fact.
Yeah,
I think Kim, in here, I don't know, Kim, if you're having trouble getting up as a speaker, I can DM you this space. Just DM me and let me know.
Yes. So
number 8 is up as well.
When Ed and I were banned,
go ahead before Brian. Just repeat
just a moment. We're going to read number 8.
And then go ahead, man. Ian or Harrison, do you want to read number 8?
Harrison can read it probably because like I said, it's a bit
Harrison, or Catherine, she's got it.
Think about tweet number 8. Think about visibility filters as being a way for us to suppress what people see to different levels. It's a very powerful tool. One senior Twitter employee told us.
Okay. Basically, just backing up what you said before.
Ian, once you say like the most insidious thing about the system they had in place was that the terms of service were always rotating, were always completely ambiguous, and no one ever. Not only did the people that were being affected ever know they were being affected, but they didn't even know what they did wrong. So it's a twofold system that I think was just incredibly insidious.
Oh, it's done on purpose. I used to be one of the leading moderators on Reddit, and we did that on purpose. The policy was that if you don't tell people what they're being banned for, they can't really complain about it, can they?
You guys, I'm still getting so many DMs asking when we're going to do a space. So if you guys haven't tweeted out the space and shared it, please make sure you do it. It just is extremely helpful so that others see that we are in here. We are reading Twitter Files Part 2 live in the space currently.
Yeah, I'm just going to retweet myself.
It's also pinned. It's also pinned up at the top in case. It's also pinned up at the top in case you guys need to catch up.
Yep, it's in the first tweet.
I'm trying to be as nice as possible. I think one of the most important things here, and I think this is for everybody in terms of making statements off of statements, right? Is I think this was a theme yesterday. What is Twitter doing versus what are Twitter employees doing? And I'm not saying it's right or wrong in any way, right? The Sam Bankman-Fried thing, just because his employees were doing it, he's claiming. And by the way, his entire circuit of complaint was really just a huge legal defense that he's mounting in terms of feigned ignorance.
I think Elon mentioned as well that Jack wasn't aware of these of a lot of what was going on. So it's about finding the right executive at Twitter. And
well, it's not really about finding the right executive necessarily. I mean, it's about the people who are in charge. The people who are in charge, and when I say people in charge, I don't mean Jack. I mean the people actually making the decisions that he is not privy to. That's Vijay Gadde and the people beneath her. They were working as
somebody made these tools, right? Somebody made the tools.
They made the tools. So it is Twitter. Yeah. You can't say it's not Twitter. You can't just say it's a rogue employee who made this. No, it's a call being made by the people higher up who decide to ban people or decide to shadow ban people.
And I think some names were called out. So when I said the right person, it's decision makers. But I think he called out a couple of names. There was a lady he called out in the first drop. Do you remember who that was?
It's Vijay Gadde. Yeah, it's Vijay Gadde.
Yeah. And she's getting a
lot. And
then you find out there's James Baker, the FBI agent.
Hold on. Yeah. Beyond that, right? Just to get to my point before I forget. When they decided to ban Milo Yiannopoulos a few years ago, that was a conversation, a very public conversation that was admitted to by Jack Dorsey. He said that the entire company decided to hold a conversation, a meeting, deciding whether or not to ban this guy. And that's what they decided upon. Whether that's a right move or a wrong move, that's up to you on how you view Milo. But that was a thing they decided upon. So all these bans, all these shadow bans that are affecting people right now was something that was decided in committee by all these guys, these executives, either over a Zoom meeting or through emails, as we've seen.
Go ahead, Brian.
I just want to add. So we were shadow banned several times as somebody on the left. I do know other people on the left who were shadow banned. I would talk to them frequently. Some of the larger accounts. I do know for a fact that I know I talked yesterday about how Ed and I were banned shortly after Dorsey went to the White House. When I think probably 3 days after that, we noticed that we were shadow banned. And by shadow banned, I mean your tweets would not appear in search.
Tweet is out.
Go ahead. I'll continue.
I'll read it. I got it. So, number 9, VF refers to Twitter's control over user visibility. It used VF to block searches on individual users, to limit the scope of a particular tweet's discoverability, to block select users' posts from ever appearing on the trending page, and from inclusion in hashtag searches. So I'm VF right now. That's just a fact. You won't see my tweets.
Right. So that's what I was talking about. So basically, they would shadow ban you, and you're like, a lot of posters would look at trends, especially back then when trends worked a little bit differently, and they would post using a trend because then their tweet would be amplified. But if you're shadow banned, when you use that trend, you would not be shown on the front page or on that trend. I noticed right after Dorsey met with Trump, we were shadow banned. We emailed Twitter. I have the email right here, or Ed has it. He can send it to me. This was May, I believe, maybe May 11th of 2019, 6 days before we were totally banned.
Can I interrupt you for just a second? Number 10 is out. 11 is out. I'm going to read them. Number 10, all without users' knowledge. So this is done without users' knowledge. That's kind of a given. Number 11, we control, this is a quote, we control visibility quite a bit, and we control the amplification of your content quite a bit. And normal people do not know how much we do. End quote. One engineer from Twitter told us this, and 2 additional Twitter employees confirmed. So they, Barry Weiss and Matt Taibbi have been speaking to Twitter engineers about this, about how this system works. And so they basically just confirmed that shadow banning is in fact happening, and this is how they limit speech. And it's terrifying because they're doing this all in secret, all in shadow, and you have no idea if you're shadow banned or not. You can only guess.
I wonder if there could be a tool that would allow us to actually see that, like if we would be able to get access to see historical data on whether certain things were banned for specific users or not. I mean, I imagine
that's the plan. That's his plan. That he wants full transparency of all of this and what went down and what's going to happen in the future. If your account is limited, you'll actually be notified of why, rather than it just being done in the dark. Really quick, before the next tweet comes out, I just want to, I don't know if Kim can speak at the moment. He might have his hands full, but he just retweeted himself from back in April. And I want to read to you guys what he said. It says, just imagine all the damage Twitter has done by silencing people through non-transparent algorithms and shadow banning in the interest of one party. Americans have never been more divided and angry because of blatant censorship. That's why so many want to see Elon Musk succeed. That is 100% spot on, and that was back in April, and here we are. So just
Can you add that
I want to thank, I just want to
top?
really quickly thank all of you guys who have shown the support that you have and continue to show the support that you do. I know there are all these weird bot accounts that are showing up and trashing me and telling me all these negative things about supporting Elon. So go ahead.
The group that decided whether to limit the reach of certain users was the Strategic Response Team, Global Escalation Team, or the SRTGET. It often handled up to 200 cases a day.
Yep, that's scary.
Yeah, that's a massive amount over time too.
Mm-hmm.
So a quick way to check to see if you were shadow banned was to basically make a post and then a few minutes later search for key phrases or words that you used in that post. If it did not appear in search, that would mean you were shadow banned. So I mean, that was a way to check.
Yeah, guys, let me ask you 2 things. One, where are you guys reading from? Are you reading from up top? Or
it's pinned.
It's Barry Weiss.
No, it's pinned. Here, let me delete this one. It's pinned to the top. The tweet by Barry Weiss at the top. It's a whole thread.
Okay. And
she's still making them.
I'm new to using this. So is the most recent thread at the top, or is it down toward the bottom?
No. Just go to Barry Weiss's feed. She's tweeting them out live right now.
Okay.
I'll DM it to you.
Oh, thank you. And then the second thing is, when when is there enough data collected here that, and some of you tech guys will know more, that when Congress will then bring in Facebook and the others to say,
Never.
no, why?
Never, because Congress, never. Pointless. Very silly to ask that question.
Why would the government get mad at people when they're taking instructions from the government?
Exactly. They have no interest in this. It's a bipartisan affair.
But we don't know if anybody took instructions from the government in these cases.
But would bring attention to the very politicians. I mean, politicians want attention. They don't want the truth.
Well, it depends on which politician we're talking about. If it's McCarthy, then yeah, sure, he'd want to call something on this. But does he have support from all Republicans? I don't know. That's the problem with a lot of Republicans in Congress. You can call them rhinos or whatever, but the fact is they're taking money from big tech, and they don't like it when they have to humiliate their friends, especially their donor friends. And that's the big problem with politics right now, is there's too much money in it.
The most that Republicans will probably do about this information is go on Sean Hannity and complain about it.
Yeah. Unless, McCarthy actually manages to rally up the troops and actually call if the thing, make this a real situation. It's a big deal.
My guess would be that a minority group of people who are actually users could actually sue for disparate treatment and then force this to come to light.
Yep. One way to do it would be if attorneys generals, I guess, from different states have their constituents affected by this and actually sue the government, or rather sue Twitter, whichever, right, for the censorship. It depends on who did the censorship. If Twitter was doing it at the orders of, say, the Biden administration, they could most certainly go after the Biden administration for this sort of thing, right? So, for instance,
standing for damage might be too attenuated.
Maybe not damage, but something else, right? At least get this.
But no, you need
happening in the future.
You need damage to prove standing for a lawsuit. So I'm saying is that I don't think that government officials would have standing necessarily for a direct damage caused by these actions. But I do believe that a concerted amount of users, if it was a minority group of users or even Republicans, could come together and say that this was angled against them and cause a private right of action that could lead to scrutiny.
But then why?
I would argue Trump lost the election because of these actions. So
One thing I'll say,
we were all fed a false narrative that Trump was. Go read Trump's last tweets and tell me where he was promoting violence. That's what we were all spoon-fed. That's what the media told all of us. Those are the lies. And it was the polar opposite of that. And we had no way of even checking for ourselves because his account was suspended. Go ahead.
But there existed a level beyond official ticketing.
Go ahead, guys. Hold on. Go ahead, Ian.
But there existed a level beyond official ticketing, beyond the rank and file moderators following the company's policy on paper. That is the Site Integrity Policy Escalation Support, also known as SIP-PES. So these are the guys who are not your rank and file moderators deciding, okay, we're just going to shadow ban you because you've been like naughty, right? You've been spamming a lot. This is beyond. She's referring to a process that was well above the pay grades of most moderators at Twitter. So you're not your average community moderator. This was something that was done higher up. So she's going to get into that next.
In regards to the shadow banning, one time I was at CPAC and I was giving people my Twitter handle, and as they were typing in, it was not coming up. So it's not just the.
So Millie, we'll give you the mic right after. So when it comes out, we'll just stop it immediately. Go ahead, Harrison or Ian, and then Millie will speak right after.
Sure.
This secret group included head of legal policy and trust Vijay Gade, the global head of trust and safety Yoel Roth, subsequent CEOs Jack Dorsey and Parag Agrawal, and others.
A lot of familiar names there, hardly surprising.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Millie.
So I think it's also the names, not just the posts, just from my experience. Because like I said, the experience I had at CPAC where I was giving people my Twitter handle and I was watching them search my name and it literally would not come up. But when I searched my name would come up. And this happened numerous times. So I think they were even shadow banning entire profiles from coming up in search
Yeah,
results.
they even did that to Elon Musk, and that's what we were discussing. They did that back in spring, where you could search Elon Musk and not find him, but you could find several fake accounts pretending to be him, even ones with blue check marks and hundreds of thousands of followers. So yeah, it's ghost banning is what that was and is.
What we call it ghost banning, but now we know it's something else.
15.
This is the biggest, most politically sensitive decisions got made. Right? This is where the biggest, most politically sensitive decisions got made. Quote, think high follower account, controversial, end quote. Another Twitter employee told us. For these, there would be no ticket or anything. So this was something that they decided, unilaterally to decide whether to ban somebody or not, whether to shadow ban someone, because there was no ticket. Nobody had to report your account for this to happen. So this had to be big accounts, an account like mine, for instance, an account like Charlie Kirk's. Nobody had to report that. It wasn't some escalation from, down below, oh, he spammed too much. No, it's nothing like that. It was something that these guys at the top decided, you know what, this guy's getting too big. Let's do something about it. Let's shut him down.
And
so I have a
tweet number
feeling,
14. So just quickly, tweet number 14, just about the secret group. Subsequent CEOs Jack Dorsey and Parag. So is he saying that Jack and Parag were involved? Is that what he means?
Yes. That's exactly what.
So that goes against.
15 is out also. It says this is where
15.
the biggest.
Yeah, 15.
Oh, is that what you just said?
It was just
yeah.
Yeah.
So that goes.
Yoel Roth was the one who just was let go as well, in case you didn't know. And that's prior to the decision to bring Trump back. He was the one who had several tweets surface about Trump, one calling him a racist and then referring to him as a tangerine in the tweet.
So just going back to tweet 14 again, involving Jack. Didn't Elon or someone say that Jack was not involved a few days ago? Or without his no?
No, he said that some things did not involve Jack, that Jack himself may not have realized what was happening, that they didn't include him. However, he was a part of this group that made these decisions. This is not a secret, right? This is not exactly a secret because, like I said earlier on, when Milo Yiannopoulos was banned, Jack was the one who called a meeting to decide if this guy should be banned because he was apparently harassing some actress, right? The black actress from Ghostbusters in 2015 or 2016 or something.
And Jack called a meeting to ban him.
Yes, yeah. So.
And when was that information made public? The meeting that Jack called.
The same day he was banned. So Jack was quite public about it.
Okay, I understand.
He may have been involved in other bands that we do not know of, right? And of course, he probably was.
That was the real turning point, though, wasn't it, Ian? As far as like a singular event in terms of beginning to censor conservatives on a massive scale.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, before that, there were no real wide-scale bans. Even when Gamergate happened, I don't know if you guys remember Gamergate in 2014. It was this controversy with game journalists and people who play video games.
16's out.
16's out? Okay. Yeah. One of the accounts that rose to this level of scrutiny was @Libs of TikTok, an account that was on the Trends blacklist and was designated "Do not take action on user without consulting with SIPPES." So that's interesting that she had a special tag there that said that you don't touch this account, don't ban her, otherwise we're going to get in a load of trouble because Tucker Carlson is going to talk about us on on the show, right? So they could literally not take action against her without
too big to fail.
The process. Yeah, too big to fail. She was too big to fail. I'm going to steal what you just said and pretend I just came up with that. Of course, everybody follows me.
Tim, Billboard, and V Robbie, guys, just jump in.
Okay,
do you want to go first? I'll let Tim go. I'll let Tim go first, just because I know you've been waiting for a while. Tim, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I just
unmute Tim.
I think it's really important to put in perspective here that this is actually a bipartisan experience. So there are a lot of people on the left who are banned. And the reason why it looks right now like it's biased towards banning people on the right is because that is the bias right now. Because most of the pressure against the establishment institution is coming from the right. And that's because of a change in the political climate over the last 5 years, I'd say, is like probably the time when it's most intensified. people on the left have, like, historically, I've had a progressive background, and I campaigned for Bernie Sanders and stuff like that. I don't really identify as a leftist or like specifically a liberal or like blue church kind of person at this point, because of the circumstances, which is that there's nearly no party we can trust. And
but I would just add one thing, Tim, is like, I think that just because considering that most of the employees in Twitter, I can't remember, 90-something% voted Democrat, I think there's a bias within the company towards, I think both were affected, but the conservatives were impacted more. I think also, Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, but Elon did say that it went both ways. But we saw that was more biased.
The bias was one-sided.
The bias was one-sided, but the door or the back door, whatever you want to call it, was available for both parties, but it was more biased towards the left.
Yeah, because
so just to make it clear, what I'm saying.
Evidence that she did.
Got it. So Robbie, do you want to go ahead? Go ahead, Robbie.
Well, I just wanted to first off, thank you for the time. Going back to the blocking and shadow banning, before I just released, I had an old account that had approximately, 25,000 followers, nothing huge, but I posted something about the effects of
17's out.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
The count which Chaya lives at TikTok began in November 2020, now boasts over 1.4 million followers, which was subjected to 6 suspensions in 2020 alone. Each time, Libs at TikTok was banned from posting for as long as a week.
Sounds about right. Just speaking back to the last gentleman, I mean, I got to give a little pushback here. I have, look, firstly, to the Krassenstein brothers, I think their assumptions are likely correct. In terms of, I do think that they were kind of
they're not progressive. That's the issue, right? They are just liberals. That's the issue. So, I mean, sorry to interrupt, but I was thinking the same thing. I completely agree with you. Krassenstein brothers are, I would say, a exception to the rule that liberals don't get banned. Of course they do. The thing is, progressives don't. If you want to talk about popular progressive accounts such as Vosh, for instance, or those, the people who retweet BuzzFeed and Vosh and Hassan Piker, these guys never get banned ever. They can literally harass people and use the R word. And, I mean, they can call people retards and stuff, and they won't get banned for it because they are protected. That's how it works there.
Ian, what about
hold on. Sorry, just 2 seconds. Whoever's speaking, just Ian. 18's out. Someone said, so I'll let you read it out quickly, and then
I'll read it out. So Twitter repeatedly informed Raychik, meaning the TikTok, that she had been suspended for violating Twitter's policy against hateful conduct. Yeah, so that's number 18. So what were you saying? What were you asking me, Kat?
Yeah, no. Well, I've definitely heard complaints from super leftist accounts, like say like Antifa or really radically Marxist kind of left wing accounts, that they do say that they have been in fact suspended, and are kind of worried about the Twitter policies. Like so I don't know if that's necessarily true. I mean,
they're too far left. There's a difference between, being like a shit poster, like a, Chapo Trap House. Those Chapo Trap House guys will never get suspended, despite leading multiple harassment campaigns on liberals, mind you, and on the right. Nonstop attacks on the right. Doesn't matter. They'll just create hoax pictures, hoax imagery, just to make fun of Tim Pool, for instance, and they don't get suspended for it, despite the fact that if a conservative were to do something like that to, say, Joy Reid, they would get suspended instantly. So it really depends on where you fall in the political spectrum. If you're Antifa, the chances are, I mean, these dirtbag left people, they might tolerate you, but they don't like you necessarily. And if you're calling for violence, that is just something they can't ignore, right? In the instance Elon Musk stepped in, that's when they started to really get clamped down on. For instance, Chad Loader. Chad Loader would often call for violence, and then he would cleverly delete his tweets a bit later, after he has been reported for calling for violence, and now he's been permanently banned. So yes, now they're being banned, but not before.
I think the difference that we can sort of state is that if you are sort of really far left, you have a chance of being sort of suspended or shadow banned or whatever. But whereas you have a bit more of a chance, like if you're sort of a liberal, and you're very unlikely, but if you're sort of fall center right, you make some comments, that you're very likely to be suspended or shadow banned.
Correct,
so
It needs to be egregious
That's
for the
honestly
left.
without even making comments. The shadow bans happen without even making comments. They've happened just for people showing support for certain accounts. So I just want to be really clear. It's not necessarily even a comment made. And as we all know, if you've ever been shadow banned, you aren't notified. You aren't told by Twitter what you've done wrong. And even when you're put in jail, oftentimes you don't know why. You're just put in Twitter jail. So it's really difficult to even, get any information from Twitter. And that's something that Elon Musk himself has said needs to be transparent.
I was shadow banned once, I believe, for following too many people too quickly. So it's simple things like that would get you a shadow ban as well. I think it was yes that they did.
There's an algorithmic thing.
I think it's the worst business model to ban people or shadow ban them and not let them know they are, because then they're wasting their time and you're wasting your time posting. Nobody's even seeing it. I totally agree that it's a terrible method of moderating.
Well, and oftentimes the only way to get out of a shadow ban, oftentimes the only way to get out of a shadow ban is to actually go silent and go dark, and then the shadow ban is lifted. So that's another thing. And another good point is that you're sitting there still just, putting your own foot in your mouth by doing what you're doing and trying to get out, get seen or get back in the algos is actually hurting your account even more and keeping you in the shadow ban, which is really unfortunate. And
Can
even both of us are still.
Guys, 19 is out.
Someone just put up a screenshot. Oh, go ahead.
Guys,
quiet. Repeat myself until I can read this, okay? So, 19. In internal SIPPES memo from October 2022, after her 7th suspension, meaning Libs of TikTok, the committee acknowledged that LTT has not directly engaged in behavior violative of the hateful conduct policy. See here. And so she just links to the site policy recommendation. And it's not a link, it's literally a God, I wish people would stop tweeting at me. I'll read it out loud. Site policy recommendation recommends placing Libs of TikTok, 1.3 million followers, not verified, in a 7-day timeout at the account level, meaning not a specific tweet, based on the account's continued pattern of indirectly violating the hateful conduct policy by tweeting content that either leads or intends to incite harassment against individuals and institutions that support LGBTQ communities. At this time, site policy has not found explicit violative tweets, which would result in a permanent suspension of the account. So Libs of TikTok has been very clever. She never targeted anybody personally. This type of enforcement action, repeated 7-day timeouts at the account level, will not lead to permanent suspension. However, should LTT engage in any other kind of direct tweet level violations of the site policy, we will move forward with a permanent suspension. So let's say she tweeted at somebody and called them stupid. That would probably have caused her to get banned forever. Now, the assessment that they said is that since its most recent timeout...
20's out.
Okay.
Yeah, let him finish 19. Go ahead,
Yeah, since its most recent timeout, while LTT has not directly engaged in behavior violative of the hateful conduct policy, the user continued targeting individuals, allies, supporters of the LGBTQIA+ community for alleged misconduct. The targeting of at least one of these institutions, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so she cut it off there. So I'm going to read 20 now. The committee justified her suspensions, meaning Libs of TikTok, internally by claiming her posts encouraged online harassment of hospitals and medical providers, by insinuating that gender-affirming healthcare is the equivalent to child abuse or grooming. So basically, just by saying that cutting off a child's penis or breasts is wrong, therefore, that is harassment of hospitals. Like, how dare you even say that? How dare you even criticize this? Because the science is settled and you must trust the science, otherwise you are a bad person. Yep.
I have another thing to add. If you go back to tweet number 18 and look at the sidebar, they can go right into your DMs and read what messages Libs of TikTok has sent to people.
Yes, it can. That's kind of a given. So, be careful of what you tweet at people because they can read it if somebody reports. Number 21 is out. Compare this to what happened when Rachel herself was doxxed on November 21, 2022. A photo of her home with her address was posted in a tweet that has garnered more than 10,000 likes. So basically, this person, whoever doxed Libs of TikTok, well, you know who it is. I forget the person's name. This German guy.
Can I say the name of the person who doxed her?
No, but I'm saying I know the person. Like, this is that German guy who runs he works with the German government or with the German government. He's funded by it, and he was the one who doxed TikTok, and he provided this information over to Taylor Lorenz, who then ran it and linked to it in her Washington Post account without her editor's knowledge, and it was later removed, and they claimed to not have seen it. So that's very fascinating. The Washington Post was in on that one. But apparently, well, not apparently, I knew this for a fact, that Raychick was doxxed, and that tweet had 10,000 likes. That's where her address was posted. Fascinating stuff, and there was no action taken against them, obviously, because why would there be?
You don't think it was deboosted?
I don't believe it was. I think it had 10,000 likes. I mean, if it was deboosted, I don't think anyone would have seen it, and instead everybody saw it.
Well,
Jason,
that happens all the time with Tim Pool too, where he's been swatted 16 times this year. They post his address all the time, but nothing is done of it.
Yeah.
Jason?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for calling me up. We started discussing the Section 230 stuff the other day, and Ian had asked me a question when we kind of like ended. And I wanted to simplify exactly what's going on. Obviously, a lot of this has to come down to everybody's concerned about the problem, but nobody has a solution. We've already been working on the solution for the better part of 6 years now. And I sort of want to explain what's going on. I sued Facebook, took the case all the way to the Supreme Court. What the California courts have done is basically they don't care. They don't want to deal with the questions. They don't answer anything we said. We actually have sorted out Section 230 a long time ago. It was textually misinterpreted. We figured it out. We got it all right. We took it all the way to the Supreme Court. But the problem was, and what the woman was speaking about, was a case called Enigma versus Malwarebytes. That case conflicts with our case, right? Because what happens is that case is based on the actual general motivation of the entire statute. We're talking about 230 here.
I think we could do it. We could do a deep dive into this maybe after the drop is done, because I know you'll be constantly
let's not talk about this right now. It's a lot of
I'd be happy to do it, but it's something that people want to hear because it's a solution.
Yeah, definitely. I'll hit you up after this segment. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, sounds good.
Focus on this thing right now because
sure thing. Sure.
Thanks, case is extremely intricate, and to go into that, it's hard.
Can I just remind people really quick, Mario, if you don't mind, Tom Fitton went on, mainstream media today and mentioned that Elon Musk should release all the Twitter files ASAP. The modified limited hangout approach needs to be ditched. And I get what he's saying, and I get everyone's push, to do that. Yeah, but at the same time, you have to remember he needs to also protect himself at this point. I mean, the last thing we want is for him to end up in sued so massively that they end up taking Twitter or, raiding Twitter or coming in and taking over the government. These are things that are that could easily happen if he isn't careful about the way he's doing this. So I would leave that up to Elon. I would, let him handle it the way he and his team see fit to do.
So
it's about talking to lawyers, right? I mean, if you release everything at once, including people's personal information, because a WikiLeaks style release would cause him to get sued. You can't do that, first of all. Secondly, it's a bad idea. As much as journalists are fucking whining and bitching on my timeline right now, being like, why is Barry Weiss releasing this in a tweet thread? Why doesn't she just put up an article and then let us sort through it? Well, I don't care personally, because this is good for the platform. This is literally building attention for the platform right now. It's building a lot of user engagement, and we wouldn't be having this space if she had released all the files at once. So they can keep whining and bitching about their old school journalism, about how things are too slow and how they want to, get those page views up. Well, too bad. You're not getting page views. We're getting channel views instead, because this is the new future of journalism.
Let's just assume and hope that afterwards. So I agree and disagree. So I think that redaction absolutely needs to happen. Selection is probably not. It's giving me a bit of a Bill Barr feel. But as long as it's released at the end of the day, I don't think there's damage.
Yeah,
exactly.
I agree with that.
It will be released.
I think Ian brings up a good point in that there is legal issues. So they can't just release conversations of people that are mentioning other people or personal matters. But I do see the case that Fitton is saying that why not just dump it all? So maybe take his time, figure out what needs to be redacted, then dump it all. That way, you're not going to get people on the left, myself included, saying there's a narrative being built. They're only talking about the people on the left, on the right who are banned or shadow banned. I mean, they're not talking about my
okay,
shadow
number 22
ban.
is out. I'm going to read that now. Sorry, guys. I'm going to mute you all. All right, stop. Number 22, when Raychick told Twitter that her address had been disseminated, she says Twitter support responded with the message, we reviewed the reported content and didn't find it to be in violation of Twitter rules. No action was taken. The doxing tweet is still up. So her tweet, the tweet that doxed her is literally still up right now. They don't care, or at least they didn't care. Now, obviously, with the release of this, it will be taken down, and whoever posted that little tweet is probably going to get suspended. Goodbye.
Well, I think it's important. I mean, what the Twitter files are really showing here and illustrating is how much priority they put into banning conservatives, because we know that for a while Twitter had a problem with even, child pornography or inappropriate images of minors being up on Twitter for weeks on end. Those images could float around, those tweets could float around, and yet instantly, if a conservative would tweet something that they didn't like, it was banned, within the same day or 24 hours. So they clearly had way more prioritization on banning political speech than they even did for going against child pornography, which is what those tools were designed to actually address.
That is correct. Yeah, they misused the tools and used it to perform political suppression. They took the hammers and everything looked like a nail.
Yeah, you guys are right. This just only confirms even that much more that it was never about ethics. It was only about dictating the narrative every step of the way.
I just want to chime in. I'm absolutely stunned by this. Looking at some of those screenshots, I think is absolutely insane to see the amount of just blatancy that they have. And I think that this once and for all illustrates that the far left are no different to the far right in terms of wanting to censor certain voices if it doesn't go along with their rhetoric, particularly those that they consider to be a threat to their agenda. And what we were talking about the other day about social engineering or anything like this. I mean, I've been shadow banned on Instagram before because I've made my thoughts quite apparent on something I didn't agree with. And I'm quite a moderate person on a lot of issues, but I do not agree with the censorship of people if they don't agree with your views. I think it's better to engage in debate than in sort of try to create a safe space and cower away, because at the end of the day, you simply siloing and segregating everything isn't going to resolve the underlying issues that provocate society.
23's out.
Okay,
great.
26 out.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay, I'm going to read it. In internal Slack messages, Twitter employees spoke of using technicalities to restrict the visibility of tweets and subjects. Here is Yoel Roth, Twitter's then global head of trust and safety, in a direct message to a colleague in early 2021. So here's what he said to this guy. A lot of times, SI has used technicality spam enforcements as a way to solve a problem created by safety under enforcing their policies. Okay, I'll read that again. A lot of times, SI, meaning that the higher ups, have used the technicality spam enforcements as a way to solve a problem created by safety, meaning trust and safety, under enforcing their policy. So meaning that if their trust and safety department fell short of enforcing something, they would literally use their spam tools at their disposal to ban somebody, which again isn't a problem per se, but it keeps us from addressing the root cause of the issue, which is that the safety policies need some attention. So Yoel Roth was kind of pissed off that the trust and safety stuff wasn't enough to actually ban people. These people who they shadow banned or that they banned were not actually violating the terms of service. So that's the reason why a moderator, somebody working on in the rank and file, wouldn't ban somebody, because it didn't technically violate anything, and then it would get escalated to somebody else who would then use the spam function to silence them. Thank you. I'll read this. 6 days later, in a direct message with an employee on the Health Misinformation, Privacy, and Identity Research team, Yoel Roth requested more research to support expanding the non-removal policy interventions like disabling engagements and de-amplification and visibility filtering. So Yoel Roth is the guy who came up with shadow banning. He's the guy who decided that they were going to expand the use of their anti-spam functions to silence people. Now, here's what he wrote. One of the biggest areas I'd love research support on this is regarding the non-removal policy interventions like disabling engagements and de-amplification or visibility filtering. the hypothesis underlying much of what we have implemented is that if exposure to, for example, misinformation directly causes harm, we could use remediations that reduce exposure and and limiting the spread or virality of content is a good way to do that by just reducing the prevalence overall. We got Jack on board with implementing this with civic integrity in the near term, but we are going to need to make a lot more robust case to get this into our repertoire of policy remediations, especially for other policy domains. So I'd love to researchers' POV on that. So basically, he asked their research team, which is comes up with policies and things like that, and how these policies are used, to basically come up with a justification for how they could use shadow banning to silence people politically. And number 26, he has added, okay, number 25, 26 is up. Crazy. He's been tweeting a lot. Roth wrote, the hypothesis underlying much of what we've implemented is that if exposure to, for example, misinformation directly causes harm, we should use remediations that reduce exposure, and limiting the spread and virality of content is a good way to do that. Number 26, he added, we got Jack on board with I just literally read all this stuff, but I'll read it again. We got Jack on board with implementing this for civic integrity in the near term, but we're going to need to make a much more robust case to get this into a repertoire of policy remediations for other policy domains. Yeah, so as I said, that Yoel Roth decided that they were going to use anti-spam policies to silence people, and they were looking for a justification to do that so that they could present it to Jack, and he would say yes or no, right? If they could make a good argument, it's okay to censor people, he might actually say yes, right?
Does it say, Ian, anywhere what year or when the dates or anything on
yes,
when that was happening?
2021.
Okay, because I have a tweet here and I just shared a screenshot of it from Jack, but this was in July of 2018 when he said, following up on this with a lot more detail, we don't shadow ban, and we certainly don't shadow ban based on political viewpoints. We do rank tweets by default to make Twitter more immediately relevant, which can be flipped off, more on ranking signals. Right there, he claimed that they do not shadow ban, and now this is telling us like 100% otherwise.
Yeah, unequivocal, bold-faced lies. Confirmed.
Yeah, and I just want to say this is the difference between Jack and Elon Musk. Elon Musk has been 100% transparent versus we were being fed lies.
Hold on, you don't understand. I said this is 2021, so they were not using shadow banning to suppress people's political views at the time.
Do you believe that?
I don't. Well, I mean, it says here in 2018, they were not necessarily using that to suppress anyone. In 2021, yes. I mean, that's when we saw the ramping up of political suppression. In 2020, 2021, that's when they started ramping up. And they might have done it without his knowledge. That's a good chance they did that. Like, for all he, when he was running the place, for all intents and purposes, he wasn't shadow banning people for these reasons. They would have
even
a
the
proper
policy
counsel.
was different, right? Like was it 2015? It was a completely different policy.
Yeah.
Like really, Elon went back to that 2015 document essentially, pretty much. So it's like
2018 is when Jack tweeted that.
Okay, so 2018. So that would make sense that it wouldn't have had that shadow banning because the philosophy was completely different at the time.
Dorsey began moving away from daily operations towards the end. I believe he turned things over more towards the executives under him. He's heading up
Square,
Square.
That's exactly right. I mean, he basically delegated it to all these guys who then took over from him. So he may not have been lying when he said these things. To his knowledge, he wasn't lying, but that doesn't mean political suppression wasn't already happening without his knowledge. And we may be able to find out if that's the case. But obviously in 2021, they were having very open discussions on bringing these policies that they have been using. I mean, even Yoel Roth, if you read the full message, they said that they have to some extent been using de-amplification to remove certain people, right? But this is done very sparingly, obviously. But they wanted to make it into an actual policy. Like turn it into company policy so that they could do it all the time, right? So if they see something they don't like, instantly they can just click a button and then that person would be shadow banned forever, right? And that is exactly what happened eventually, that they started banning people forever by doing that.
I see Tom fitting in here, and I would like to invite him up here because I did mention, his tweet, and I would like to invite him up to just speak. Yeah, if he can. I invited you up, Tom, if you're available. If it doesn't let you, I can send you a DM invite that way.
One thing I think is really important to point out is Elon is really taking one for the team in the name of truth and transparency. The fact that he's, he just bought Twitter and now he's coming out and releasing all this at the risk of Twitter's reputation. I do think that speaks to something. And I think that, it puts on the line whether or not Twitter will be able to claim that Section 230 immunity. Wouldn't you guys say?
It's also building his reputation, though, because he wants to build a new reputation for Twitter and give something new to the people, right? So in some ways, yes, it may seem altruistic, and maybe it is. I mean, it's hard to know what is in somebody's mind. I am inclined to believe that he might believe in a lot of these values, but it is also from just a business point of view, he's also attracting a lot of people for whom this is a really great, appealing thing. I mean, it is appealing for a lot of people, right? A lot of people have come back to Twitter.
Whether it's intentional or not, marketing wise, if again, I'm not saying he's not doing it based on ethics, but marketing wise, this is a genius strategy. The way he's teasing it, the way he's releasing the information and getting attention to it. So I think it's two birds with, what was it? Two birds with one stone. Go ahead, Piotr.
No, I just wanted to speak to what... Is there another one? Okay. No, I just wanted to speak to what Catherine and Millie said. I think it's very true. I was on the fence about Musk's acquisition, but the way that he's doing this, having spoken to him on Saturday, I'm impressed. And I stand more than anything by freedom of speech. And I think, again, as I just said, this is an illustration that, be it the far left or the far right, these are the fringes and they are very similar. Stalin was supposedly on one side, Hitler on the other, but they had very similar narratives when it came to the oppression of freedom of speech and their people. And whilst I'm not going that far with this is definitely a suppression.
27's out.
I'm going to read it. There's more to come on this story, which was reported by Abigail Schreier, Schellenberger, Nellie Bowles, and Isaac Grafstein, and the team at the Free Press. Keep up with the unfolding story here at our brand new website, the Free Press. So she's actually they're going to release a lot more details on her new website that she's launching today, I guess. Yeah, cool. Neat. So yeah, that's the drop for today, I believe. There's going to be more of it, and they're going to publish more stories. I think they're going to go into detail, and I know some of these people, so I should probably hit them up and say, hey, why don't you look into my account?
Are you still shadow banned, Ian?
I am shadow banned from search, but not from anything else. Like after I talked to Elon about it, I think he removed the deboosting that was affecting my account, so I'm no longer deboosted, which is fascinating. So at least they know how to remove that one.
Ian and I are both shadow banned. Really quick, I got a comment on the space from Barry Rossi, and she says people were getting shadow banned, and there's backfeed. I'm not sure if it's from you, Mario. I've had some complaints about it, but
number 28 is
out. There's another. Okay, go ahead. I thought we were done.
Apparently not. The authors have broad and expanding access to Twitter's files. The only condition we agreed to was that the material would first be published on Twitter. So it looks like you should probably follow all these people, and they're some good names here. Michael Schellenberger is fantastic. I recommend following him. I recommend following Abigail Schreier. She wrote an amazing book, Irreversible Damage. It's about transgenderism and how it's irreversible. So we are going, like they're all right-wing people. It's going to piss a lot of people off, man. This is some good stuff. I'm very happy that they gave it to these people. Like, hell yeah.
Well, Ian,
amazing. But really quick, if I could just finish what I was reading from Barry Rossi, she was saying that people were being shadow banned back in 2018 when Jack went out of his way to make that tweet claiming that they weren't being shadow banned. She said, "Thank goodness we have Missouri versus Biden testimony."
So, but Ian, on your point though, because we've seen mainly a shift in the number of left-wing candidates like Warren and others. They've seen a net decrease of 5-10% in their followership. I've got friends of mine who are saying that, and you've seen right-wing accounts seeing a surge. So is that, what do we think that the impact of these files are going to do to that, or not really? It's just a general shift back to the center ground. It makes me think of that image that Musk shared back in April. The one where he shared the time center.
And a lot of left-wing accounts, as we've even seen publicly, like Alexander Vindman, they're followed by bots, and they're getting rid of bots right now, and that's the reason for part of their drop. I won't attribute any of this that I'm leaving the site because from a study done by the New Scientist, it was published a few days ago, they said that of the 140,000 people who claimed to be leaving Twitter to go to Mastodon or different websites, only 1.5% of that 140,000 people even left. So most of them are still here. They haven't deactivated. They have no intention of leaving because Twitter is the one TV show you just cannot miss.
Well, they probably didn't
As you're
deactivate
speaking,
their
I got a
accounts.
DM from someone named Brad who actually was shadow banned so often he left Twitter. And I think so many other right-wing people did and now are rejoining knowing that they're not going to be treated so unfairly.
Yeah, and I think many of us on this panel have experienced, most of us probably have experienced shadow banning in one way or another. And I just listened.
My first account was suspended.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And I was actually listening to Jimmy Dore. He ironically brought it up the night before last when I was listening to him. Some of you guys are familiar with him, but he's very much of a, for the most part, a left-wing commentator. He's got a YouTube show and stuff, a real prominent guy. Anyway, it happened to him with the follower count throttling, which I've talked about previously, and something aspect of shadow ban that hasn't been talked about too much, but that one's really, really quite the feature where many times what they would do, what the previous Twitter administration would do is they would have your previous followers automatically unfollowed from your account. So even though no matter how many new followers you'd get, they would always make sure to subtract that follower account, so you always remain stagnated at the same level, no matter how much traction you were getting.
I mean, that's absolutely correct. That's exactly what happened to me for the longest time. I had, I don't know, fucking 350,000 followers, and it would go up, I'd get 1,000, next day, nothing, and it would just start negativing, like minusing 50 every single day for like 10 days straight.
By design, no doubt about it.
Oh yeah, and then people message me, but like, I didn't unfollow you. What the hell? Did you unfollow me? Of course. I was like, no, of course not.
Guys, Eric Weinstein's requesting. I am unable to pull him up unless we rotate Mario.
I've pulled him up already, Tara.
Okay, good. We need to let him speak this time because last time he was up here, we didn't get to him, and it's highly imperative we hear what he has to say.
Eric, the mic is yours.
I have been ingesting all of this stuff and have a couple of things to share. But I need a couple minutes without interruption, if that's okay.
Sure. We'll just got Eric up on stage, so we'll give the mic to Eric just quickly, if you don't mind, Kim, and then we'll give you the few minutes with no interruptions.
Hi, good to be with you. I'm just driving, so I'll be brief. One of the really insidious things about these patterns is that those of us who could surmise that our accounts were being affected and manipulated, every time we said so, it gave grist to large numbers of people who were constantly detracting from us, saying that we were unstable mentally, we were paranoid, our tweets sucked, we just couldn't accept that nobody liked us. And I think it's important to recognize that this isn't about a time of healing or moving on. This is about the need to drive a wooden stake through the heart of this progressive movement that is actually a victim blaming cult. It victimizes people, and then it makes fun of people in public for noticing that they are being destroyed reputationally. This can have huge financial ramifications. I know people who have been in very poor mental health because their own family members are being incited against them through what we would call establishment media. There's something that's near and dear to my heart, which is it's very important that we not hijack this story and make this about partisanship. The fact is that these people weren't merely partisan. What they were was totalitarians who wanted control of our communication between us. Anybody who was off script, and particularly left-wing people who are off script, got different of this treatment. This is not reserved for the right wing. The question, were you thinking from the hymnal or were you thinking for yourself? And if you weren't singing from the hymnal, you got some version of this treatment. In particular, may have even been worse for people on the left, because that was indicating that this wasn't coming out of left-wing politics, but some kind of a mental disease that spread to a large group of people who decided to act in concert. So I just think it's important to leave you with two things. From what we now know, first of all, we're going to have to kill this thing dead, not merely move past it because Elon is now at the helm. And we're going to have to recognize that this isn't about left versus right. This is about some truly monstrous, horrible people who got control of critical communications resources and repurposed our national conversation in such a way that they could make people who are the most observant and the most courageous seem like they were mentally unhinged. And it is time to go after the gaslighters and name them. And this campaign of claiming that these are nothing burgers, it's very important that we all order the nothing burger every time we see it on the menu. We now know just how many calories and how much protein is in a nothing burger. So if anyone attempts to label one of these stories as a nothing burger story, my advice is that we insist on being served the nothing burger, because we now know that nothing burger is code for having found the jackpot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. And in
Brilliant.
Elon's words, the virus is the woke mind virus. That's Elon Musk coined that, as far as I know. So I think that's the illness that you're referring to. Thank you so much for coming up and speaking. I definitely am ordering a nothing burger.
Yeah, that was really on point, and I just wanted to dovetail off of what. Thank you, Eric. That was awesome. I couldn't have said it better myself. And just to dovetail quickly off what he said there, the level of gaslighting that many of us were put through from the previous Twitter administration is just extraordinary and very underappreciated in my opinion. Like he said, we were labeled conspiracy theorists, mentally unstable. It must be that our content sucked, our tweets sucked, our YouTube channel sucked. Every aspect of what we were doing and putting work into must have been of poor quality. And here we now know unequivocally, especially Ian said it earlier. I could tell even when half of my shadow ban was lifted, instantaneously, Twitter became a night and day experience.
Pure evil. We need to call it what it is. This is an evil attempt to mess with the sanity of people who are using your own platform. This isn't a joke. It's not politics. What we're talking about is actually pure, unadulterated evil.
Yeah,
Totally
a comment was
agree.
made by Piotr before he dropped. I don't know if he can come back up or not, but he had mentioned that, the right kind of did the same thing to the left and left to right. And I appreciate, Eric, that you came up and sort of said this isn't even necessarily about that. It's just making people feel like they're actually losing their minds by even thinking that they're being shadow banned, suppressed, censored, all of these things. But as soon as we saw Trump get banned, suspended from Twitter as our sitting president, that's when, everything was just out in the open. And it seemed at that point, they didn't even care to hide it anymore.
But Eric, I've got a question for you. Because from the days that we've engaged on Clubhouse a little bit, one of the things I remember you speaking on, and something that's in the back of my mind, is that we have a lot of younger generational people who are very, very left-leaning, very progressive, because there's been a certain, I don't know if it's nefarious or whatever, but manipulation of their minds to view things in a certain way. And quite clearly, Twitter's been a central part of that. Big tech is a big part of that. So how do we reclaim the minds of those who are so disenfranchised with certain parts of the political spectrum, if you want to call it more than left or right? But how do we re-engage people who are so far over to the fringe that they can be given a renewed sense of faith in the center ground, or even center right, or anything like that?
Well, it's not a question of the center ground. It's a question of we're going to have to rebuild something around a tension that makes sense. In other words, we're not supposed to, I don't want a one-party system, even if I could design the party from the ground up. What we need loyal opposition. We need people who are going to have a beer with each other after fighting things according to Queensberry rules and accepting the decisions. The key issue is what we have lost in terms of comity, in terms of civility. We have to recognize that this woke mind virus that you're speaking of has nothing to do with traditional progressivism. Traditional progressivism was about getting working families a fair shake. And I can assure you that I've been in far more right-wing conversations recently, worried about working families, than I have in left-wing conversations. What we need to do is to recognize that in essence, a culture only functions, and I'm going to put this in big terms, when it's concerned about babies, when it's concerned about self-continuation, about progress, about families, about making sure that people have the wherewithal to raise children who can raise children who can raise children. And if we do not recognize that all the antinatalists, all of the accelerationists who are trying to blow everything up, these people do not deserve a seat at the table. And I'm going to say, just to be as controversial as I can, the key problem is you can't keep trumpeting the benefits of inclusion without talking about the necessity of exclusion. It's very important who you refuse to seat at the table. And people who are attempting to destroy us, to use our openness, to use our willingness to consider ideas and cultures other than our own, who are weaponizing our best instincts in order to self-destruct us, these people are engaged in something that cannot be sat at the table. I have all day to listen to historical injustice, to issues of what we've done wrong historically. But if you're not fundamentally about turning that into a positive vision for everyone, then fundamentally, I really think we need to talk about your exclusion from the table. We don't seat the suicide bombing community. We don't seat the solipsist community. We don't seat the psychopath community. And it's time to stop seating the community that keeps trying to use our openness as some kind of code injection attack where we sit around all day long mulling over what it is that they just said, which makes no sense. These people lied. And it's very important to recognize that we are not going to spend our future saying, oh, well, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. No, it's been clear throughout. And what we're going to do is we're going to lower the standards for evidentiary thresholds when somebody says, hey, this is clearly a manipulation. These people have nothing to do with the left. And just to bring it back to a more positive vision, I can assure you that if we can get rid of the Charlottesville right and the lunatic woke left, what we can have again is a healthy dyad which has loyal opposition. We have to teach our children the value of loyal opposition that stops at the water's edge.
Thank you. And really quick, Ian, I don't know if you saw that 29 is out, so a lot of people are asking us to please read it.
Okay, I can read that for sure. Here goes. And 30 is out as well. 29. We're getting started on our reporting. Documents cannot tell the whole story here. A big thank you to everyone who has spoken. If you are a current or former employee, we'd love to hear from you. Please write to tips@dfp.com. And number 30, watch Matt Taibbi for the next installment. So there will be a third installment very, very soon.
So again, that email, in case you all know anyone, it's tips@thefp.com. Any ex-employees from Twitter who would like to speak out or be a sort of whistleblower in this situation.
Tom, I see your hand up as well. I'll let you jump in. Then Tim, go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. A great discussion as always, and I appreciate the opportunity here. I have a few thoughts.
I'm leaving then, guys. Have a good day.
Oh, Kim, you still there? No, Kim, I'll give you the mic. I know you've been waiting for a while, Kim. My apologies, man. Tom, if you don't, he dropped out.
No, I'll hold on.
Go ahead, Tom. No, he just dropped out. I'll ping him now on Signal.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tom.
You know, the extraordinary nature of these disclosures, I guess it would be difficult to overstate in that, between what happened last week with the first batch and this batch, it shows that Twitter just wasn't, quote, lying and engaged in, misconduct that's unimportant. But, this is the sort of stuff that gets people sometimes thrown in jail when you lie to users and shareholders and regulators and Congress. So there are a few corporate heads who would have, put their company's head on the block like this. But certainly the prior management of Twitter, it seems to me, has significant legal issues they should be worrying about. Of course, the challenge is that the federal agencies are run by the Biden administration, and they support this type of misconduct, so they're unlikely to pursue it, and more likely, as we've been talking about, to pursue Elon Musk. My second point is this comports with everything I had gone through. I had tweeted several times a straightforward tweet: hydroxychloroquine is a safe drug. I didn't tie it to COVID. That's all I said. and I was repeatedly tweeting it, once a week or so. And at one point, someone complained about it, and Twitter in October of 2020 told me, we got this complaint, but it's fine. It doesn't violate our rules. Well, then on January 8th, they not only told me it violated its rules, they took it down and locked my account, and I refused to remove the tweet for several months afterwards. But in the meantime, I constantly appealed. They ignored the appeal. At one point, they said I was engaged in hate speech. And so it just shows you how arbitrary and capricious the whole process was for a major account like mine, which had been retweeted repeatedly by President Trump. And, I'm the head of a national watchdog organization as well. And thirdly, just to wrap up, I would suggest that, and I know Elon Musk talked about this in the last Twitter space, that, eventually all the documents are going to come out, but there are going to be these reports in the meantime. If I were him, I would focus on just getting all the documents out. We don't need any more gatekeepers that however honest they are in their reporting and whatever good faith activities they're undertaking to try to get the truth out to as many people as quickly as possible. There always going to be more questions, not only by those like us, but by the enemies on the outside. And the best way to overcome that is to, maybe highlight the documents that you found that are important after review of all the documents that are potentially releasable, and just release them all at once. I mean, that's what Judicial Watch does. And we highlight the documents we think are important, but we post them all for everyone to see. And as long as these documents aren't given to the other media, they have an excuse not to report on them. And so we can complain they're not going to report on it, but they have this journalism rule that they have to have the documents and access to the material before they report on it. So, I don't want to go too hardcore on it, but that would be my approach here. Because now everyone's going to be wondering, well, am I on the list? How are they going to figure that out? How long are we going to wait for that? And if I were him, I'd say, let's get all these documents together, put them out there. We can have favored reporters and folks that we think will give them a fair and honest review, look at them to help people guide them through the mess of documents. But we just need to get them all out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Tom, if I could ask you really quick, did you notice a distinct decrease in engagement on your Twitter profile once President Trump began interacting with you and retweeting you and so forth?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty remarkable because how many followers did he have? 65 million or something?
At the time, about that. Mm-hmm.
And I would get virtually no increase in followers.
Wow.
And, and I thought something was up. I couldn't put my finger on it. And so I think they were suppressing his reach as much as mine at that point, because it didn't make any sense that an account that big, even with a lot of, automated followers, as I'm sure an account like that had, wouldn't result in a big increase. I would get more organic growth of my Twitter account. From my own tweets as from his retweets. It was really remarkable. All of that has changed since it was announced Twitter was going to be purchased by Elon Musk. I suspect they turned off a lot of these tools for when he first announced it, and the engagement and the follower accounts, and I'm sure you're all seeing this too, are increasing, in ways that I've never seen before since I've opened the account.
Tom, it's Brian Krasenside. I just want to say we probably disagree on a lot of things, but I totally agree with you on what you said here about just dumping all the files. From somebody on the left, I think you can probably agree with me. Regardless of what happens here in these threads, there's going to be people that are going to be skewing it and saying, hey, Elon is creating a narrative. And regardless of if he is, the left's going to be saying that nonstop. So I think dumping all the files would be the solution. I'm wondering if I'm in the files about our ban. So I love what you said.
Yeah,
I just want to say that. Sorry,
I'm sure there are leftists that have been punished unfairly too. This is, a lot of those who are complaining about free speech are leftists, or I shouldn't say leftists, but to the left of folks like me, obviously, and they see there's something up with it.
Okay, so Elon just tweeted something. He responded to Barry Weiss and Lips of TikTok, and it's a tweet. It's him giving the raising his eyebrow, and it's a screenshot of a tweet from Vijaya Gad. I'm not sure exactly when the date was. I think it was maybe 2018 or 2019. She tweeted, "Twitter exists to serve the public conversation, enabling important discussions around the world to occur. Favoring one specific ideology or belief goes against everything we stand for." How ironic, given that she was the one to violate all these rules.
Oh my god.
Yep, that's right.
That's hilarious. Okay, that is hilarious. I just wanted to make one quick other point, if that's okay. I think what this illustrates is just how big a shift we've seen in contemporary politics. And don't worry, I'm not going to go political, but if you think about the rhetoric that's presided over the predominant sides of the left and right, think about McCain and Obama. You may have hated both, you may have liked both, whatever, but there was a degree of respect among most people in that time frame, and that was before Twitter really took off. And so what Twitter and other social media accounts, what tech firms have done, is really push a lot of the narrative to the fringes. It makes me think of that image I think Musk shared from earlier this year, where he's standing in the center or center right, and then the left moves, and then it moves more, and then suddenly he's like sort of a hardcore rightist, and it shows you just how left leaning some people have gone in an attempt to sort of push the narrative. And I think that this is going to be a huge opportunity for healing. I know that perhaps sounds slightly sort of idealistic, but I do think it's going to be an opportunity to sort of get that thing out in the open, vent the air, and sort of really address some of the underlying things that have been, dominating so much of the discourse for a long time. I can see this happening in the UK, certainly, let alone in the States, and hopefully that can begin to, address the polarization that has existed, because I don't think tech has, well, it's definitely had a role in that, let's be honest.
Martin, go ahead, man.
I think it's
Millie, go ahead, then
important.
Tim.
Oh, okay, sorry. I think what's also important here is to talk about the psychological operations aspect when we're dealing with these shadow bans, just like what Eric was saying earlier about how they were gaslighting us, telling us, oh, you just, nobody likes you, nobody likes your opinions, just go away, go to a different platform, you're not being shadow banned, right? But all the while they're shadow banning us. Then we have to talk about the aspect of bots and how all these bots were allowed to run rampant on Twitter, and they had way more bot accounts than they were letting on about. And so, I recently, not too long ago in 2020, I did a documentary called Shadowgate. And what we had exposed was how, military grade and developed psychological warfare weapons software programs that were developed for the military were commercialized, and now you have private companies essentially utilizing those tools with bots, where essentially one person could be controlling hundreds or thousands of bots in order to target individuals psychologically in comment sections and on social media like Twitter, for example. So, I mean, we all of us who have been shadow banned, all of us who've been targeted by these bots, we are targets for psychological warfare operations in America. That's really what's going on here.
If you think that your account is being shadow banned, there are things you can do. And this is just for anyone listening. Billboard Chris, who was up here, just DM'd me and said that he had been shadow banned for over a year. And now that he has Twitter Blue, he went to support there, the support feature in Twitter Blue. And actually within a week, it was fixed. So just know that there is support out there. I think it will get better as time goes on and, Elon fixes Twitter, but you can always try that method as well.
Catherine, Tim, go ahead, guys.
Yeah, I really think what Eric said before, I just want to draw attention back to that, because I think it was really important to integrate that this is a common bipartisan issue of public safety, freedom of speech, and civic rights. So this deployed in any direction if institutions have the power to exert this type of control. So this is something that we just need to integrate, as this is not something that's acceptable in a free society. And, as someone who's had a left background, I am perfectly in agreement that the woke cancel culture is really, really destructive to our society overall. It's projecting trauma onto controlling everyone else. And it's not actually progressive, it's regressive. So the reality is that it's actually that corporate liberals have co-opted people who believe in this to use it as a tool to control people. It's not actually leftist. It's just a mechanism for control. I think that that the woke culture is getting used, and it's not something that can continue, because this is enabling a military industrial intelligence complex to achieve greater levels of control over American citizens. And this is actually risking global resiliency and national security, because it's affecting the function of democracy in this country, and it's affecting the psychological health of this country. The establishment currently bans people with views that they don't like: anti-war, anti-censorship, anti-corruption and whistleblowing, anti-lockdowns, and basically anything that's against those narratives. That's what they're banning for. It's not if you're on the left or the right. That doesn't exist.
Did you say they banned anti-war narrative?
They are
Yes.
extremely hostile
100%.
to anti-Ukraine. If you're basically like, hey, we shouldn't be supporting Ukraine financially, this risks nuclear war, then they are actually there's actually a lot of hostility towards those views. And if you look at people like Glenn Greenwald, Jimmy Dore, Matt Orfalea, Edward Snowden, people who were historically progressives, okay? These are progressive people until just a couple years ago, because they are against these wars, and they're against corruption, and they've generally sided with whistleblowers that are pointing out this is getting to be a very centralized and authoritarian society, and this is a problem. So now people like that, like Jimmy Dore, Glenn Greenwald, are being called far right. They're not far right. They're still progressives. They haven't changed their views in the majority of policies. It's just that they're against these specific policies. And now it's so chilling to public discourse, the ability to solve problems collectively, is that you're an extremist if you criticize the dysfunction of institutions. Well, these institutions, whether you're on the right or the left, you can see these institutions are failing, and they're taking us towards collapse of our civilization is really at risk with a lot of the things that are going on regarding our inability to deal with our ecological issues, our economic issues, our currency issues, and the fact that we're really close to a nuclear war right now. I just remind us that this is because our politics aren't working. It's because of a civic breakdown. And we actually need the opposition of being able to say, hey, what the establishment political view is, what Washington is doing isn't okay, and we need to change it. That's the conversation. That's the polarity that we need to talk about, not the right or the left. The right or the left do not exist. The left does not exist.
Washington is being bought by
for years. Exactly.
Entities like BlackRock. BlackRock has complete control and is now going as far as telling people how they're allowed to speak. So, I mean, you're 100% right. It's the big institutions. It's the money. Follow the money.
Power.
To the
We need to actually deal with this as a public, and this is the actual conversation we need to be having, and that's the reality of the danger of how this censorship is affecting our ability to solve our problems.
So I just wanted to speak to the Ukraine point very quickly. I was there in August for some of my work, and the reality of we are nuclear rhetoric is being spoken. It's not imminent, but it's definitely a scary factor. And I even tweeted about it briefly. I since deleted those tweets because I realized, and I'm a pretty moderate person. I veer on left and right depending upon the issue, the context, the people who are running, and I noticed a drop in my usership because and I'm as I say, I do watch my P's and Q's because partially of my work, and I noticed that even when I mentioned the idea that I think what I said roughly was along the lines of the sentiment of nuclear war cannot be ruled out, or something, that basically a lot of Ukrainians are very concerned by that, and I noticed a drop in reach. I had like 4,000 followers. I don't know, not big at all, but it happened to people even in the center realm. And it's just, and I know it's not left, right, and stuff. We want to move beyond that rhetoric, but it's just bizarre how much this censorship can go. and how much they will just do anything to push a certain narrative, which I think
I
is
know a
very
number of
disturbing.
Russians who have been banned from this platform early on for simply trying to present historical facts. Right? They were bringing up 2014 and how the attack in Donbass escalated following the coup in Ukraine. To simply mention that would cause them to be suspended, to be banned from this platform. Many Russians living in the UK, living in America, they were banned for simply stating these facts. And it was all because they were either mass reported or because one of their tweets would go viral and then it would just get taken down. And this was what was happening for the longest time, at least until Elon came around. And now we actually see their tweets. It's very fascinating how the censorship is
I'm
manipulated.
probably on a different side of this particular conversation than some of the people on stage, but I still think that the fact that it's one thing to disagree with people, it's a completely different thing to sort of control how speech is used and what people are not allowed to say. And this is kind of the disturbing part, to kind of bringing it into the general conversation. It is completely disturbing that our narratives are sort of built and shifted and created based on what is and what isn't allowed, because our perception of the world is sort of built, like, we can't know all the facts of the universe. We have a very limited window. We know a little bit from the world that we observe. We know a little bit from our colleagues, our friends, our family, and then the rest of it we get through social media, we get through traditional media channels. And if that's manipulated, whether that's from withholding, deplatforming, banning, controlling what is shown and what isn't, then our accurate worldview is just not there. And then the decisions that we make, whether that's how we open our business or how we vote or which policies we support, is completely skewed, and that's really problematic. And I think I was just kind of reflecting on these first few drops and just thinking about that, and those were things that we all kind of talked about for years, so we sort of knew about it, so it wasn't really new information, and in a way that almost seemed kind of anticlimactic. But at the same time, and this is kind of goes to what Eric was saying earlier on the stage, where people felt like they were gaslit for years, right? And so I think having sort of the receipts to that, to kind of open people's eyes and know that, hey, what I felt and what I experienced was actually true, I think is really important. And ideally, there are steps that would be taken from that. Somebody just said, oh, sorry, Mario.
No, I'll let you finish, Catherine. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I just wanted to read something that somebody sent me. I don't know if people here know, but there's this really funny account called Dr. Rollergator. Just something that he was banned for 9.5 months was, I always wondered what that was. It was just a tweet that to Jordan Peterson and Justin Trudeau, which was, please buy leather gloves so you can dramatically take one off and slap him across the cheek. That was it. That was the tweet. Right.
So I've got a question for you, Catherine, and Tom. I see Tom's hand up as well. So there's a comment here by Alain Garcia, because I made a tweet saying asking people for their thoughts on the file drop, and there's a few people that are saying everyone knew this was going on, so the Twitter files don't bring, there's no major revelations here. What do you guys think on this point?
I don't think there are major revelations. Like I said, I think there are some receipts. I would have personally liked to see a bit more. I would have liked to see more screenshots and more accounts. But somebody mentioned that there's probably going to be some sort of a tool that we could maybe even search ourselves and see if we were deboosted, or it'd be nice to see if specific tweets were deboosted.
As someone who's operated in American politics and in kind of like, I lived in San Francisco for a couple of years in the tech community, around a lot of the people who actually write tech policy and regulation and the people at these companies. This is, I would say, like relatively common knowledge that something like this is what's happening. I would say if you're enough of an expert, you'd had an idea that it was like this. I don't know if anybody had. I didn't know that there would be a dashboard with this level of specificity in terms of the types of policies, but it doesn't surprise me at all And even
Yeah,
like
because we
5,
did it on
10
Reddit.
years ago,
I said earlier.
I never would have.
Yeah.
I never would have been surprised by this. So it's
We
not
did this on Reddit
surprising.
to
But now
suppress bots.
we have a fact now. Yeah, I mean Reddit. We know that Reddit is biased in how they moderate, and we know that Wikipedia as well. I mean, if you study any of these social networks, you look at the way that they moderate, and that is politicized.
Is it guys? Sorry, is there any platform that's not biased?
4chan.
Mine's no, 4chan is biased.
Or they, I don't know.
They
What
are
about
biased.
Tumblr?
Yeah.
Tumblr.
I would say Twitter. I would say the fact that we're able to sit here and have this discussion with people, left, right, and center, and be open-minded, be in the same room together, and be able to have a discussion like this. It's Twitter. Twitter is the only place where you can reach across the aisle and hear each other out and not shut each other down or go mass report accounts just because you disagree with them.
Would you say, Tara, then that it's as open-minded as the people on it are willing it to be? Because here we are on the stage, we are kind of all over the place ideologically, but we all sort of share one ideology, which is we are kind of all about freedom of speech and sharing ideas and exchanging ideas regardless of our ideologies.
Shouldn't every human being believe in that? Shouldn't that be just a basic human right to have the freedom of speech?
It's not.
That's where I think the left and the right can meet in the middle and understand that we all need to be defending this for each other. I will defend your right to speak, whether I agree with you or not. You should have that right.
Tara, I agree about Twitter, except for the fact that I'm using an account to sneak into here to talk.
Yeah,
I hope your account gets fixed, and others as well.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch that are being unbanned gradually, Brian.
Yeah, Laura Loomer was unbanned today, as was Roger Stone, and they've been banned for the longest time.
Yeah, I was
so
talking to Laura earlier today.
Don't be surprised if more people get unbanned. Obviously, it's going to happen. It's just happening in waves right now because they are vetting these accounts for the most part. Not all of it's properly vetted. There have been some bad accounts being reinstated. But there have also been a lot of high-profile accounts that are still left offline. For instance, Carpe Donktum still has yet to be reinstated. I don't know why that's the case, but it is the case. I think it's just a matter of time now.
It's because they're only reinstating accounts ad hoc. They're just doing it ad hoc because all the infrastructure is still there. They haven't actually gone over this like at a technical level of changing the way the whole system works. And the reason why you can know that is because Jim Baker was the one who was in charge of the releases at first. So even Elon didn't know who he was and didn't know enough about what was going on to boot the guy out before he started trying to release the information. So at a technical level, it's going to take them months to reinstate everybody who should be reinstated.
I'll go quickly
in the previous thing. Before you speak, I'll just say, I'll just add an addendum here, is that Elon said there's just no tools for them to even detect spam right now. So they are building these tools, and his job at Twitter is basically oversee these engineers and make sure that they have tools at their disposal to unban people, to enforce the rules, to do moderation, and just to keep the site running, because the tools are just non-existent right now. So that is his focus, that's his priority, and everything else is it's just done ad hoc for now.
I just got a comment from someone named David Branham who's listening in on the space, and he says, "Oh my God, you are my people. I can't believe there's a group having a conversation about what's actually wrong. This is huge." I just want to commend you all again. I mean, to be able to sit and do this at the round table, Mario, thank you so much for putting this on. I mean, it really just shows the progression of our society. And this is a moment in history. And each time you do these, it is. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Tara. So I want to go quickly before I go to Tom. I want to say a comment I see here from a tweet. I'll ask the question: is Twitter now the only platform that's not biased, or that doesn't have bias censoring? And then Chadwick goes, "Bias is human, so not yet." So it would be curious to see what systems, because obviously to replace that bias that humans have, systems should be the solution. But then again, humans build those systems. So I'd be curious to see how Twitter looks like in the next 5 to 10 years.
If we want to, supplant human bias with AI, which is, well, it is biased as well. It's biased based on in favor of whatever programming you put into it, right? The inputs are what bias AI. But let's just say we can produce an AI that's capable of being unbiased by taking in every single point of view. We probably don't want to. It's dangerous. I mean, I don't mean dangerous in the sense that I'm some sort of Luddite and I don't want AI to control us. That's not the case at all. I think that we should be integrating with AI, and in doing so, we may be able to address our biases. Maybe not become unbiased, but address them in a way that is positive and constructive, in a way that it takes the best of both biases or whatever biases you have, and says, hey, how can we make this a good thing for the vast majority of people? Right? That could be a thing in the future.
But you're Tom, also I know you've been waiting for a while. I'll give the mic to Tom. I know you've been waiting for a while, man. Go ahead.
You know, first of all, it is big what came out today. I mean, what we had is documentary evidence that they were lying to users and to regulators and to members of Congress about their conduct as a corporation. And I think also what's important about this is that, you know, we're concerned about the FBI and collusion with government and the campaigns. But you can see in the materials by Roth and the discussion points they had about libs of TikTok is that they've incorporated into their algorithms and they had incorporated into their algorithms and into, you know, their policies and procedures for accounts, this partisan and ideologically to the left approach to misinformation. And so, you know, you don't need Joe Biden to say, take this tweet down. They've got it baked into the cake, or they had it baked into the cake. And so that's why it's important this internal material comes out, because it shows that at one point they didn't need to speak to outsiders to know what to do, because they had the systems in place to curtail the speech that they all knew they didn't want spread. And, you know, by way of background, you know, many years ago, I don't know how many years ago, but, you know, I've been involved in conservative movement for longer than I care to admit to. But before this whole issue of censorship began, you know, Facebook and Twitter started dipping their toes into trying to regulate the content in response to online Islamic terrorist organization. And they were fearful about going there. They didn't know what to do. They were looking for support, obviously from conservatives. That's how I found out about it. And because they knew that these terrorist groups were using their platforms to organize online. And isn't it interesting how that quickly metastasized into you know, this. I don't know who was speaking earlier about the national security state, but that entire approach with respect to Russia that had a partisan and fake news approach to Russian intervention in our elections uses an excuse to censor all sorts of Americans. And then we have someone like James Baker, former general counsel for the FBI, become a top lawyer for Twitter. You know, someone who had been compromised because of his prior, what I believe, strong evidence of misconduct while I was over at the FBI, then in a position to continue to cause more damage to his ideological and political opponents at Twitter. And as has been suggested in the various Musk and Taibbi tweets, he may have interfered with this process here. So it's really been a kind of a remarkable arc where they began trying to moderate content largely in the political space to restrict terrorist organizing. And it quickly began or turned into we need to, censor anything the establishment doesn't like. And, you know, contrary to my colleague who was speaking earlier, the establishment tends to be very left to center. And in this case, we're in a revolutionary moment, I believe. And we have this unholy mix of radicals in academia and in the private sector working with partisans, Democrats mostly, who see opportunities to suppress their opponents by embracing this radical attack on free speech and the First Amendment. And this is why they wanted to destroy Musk, because he could blow all that up.
Before we continue,
really quickly, Mario.
I just want to say to the audience very, 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 very briefly, Tara. So for the next drop, I've just created the space. I've tweeted it out. So anyone that wants to set your reminders for the next one, make sure you do. It's the last tweet, and I'm going to pin it above as well for everyone. So it'll probably be, when do you think, Ian, the next one will be?
Possibly tomorrow. Who knows? Tomorrow's Friday.
I've set the date for 2 days. I've set it for 2 days from now, but we can, we'll kick it off as soon as it happens.
We can
I've
kick
just
it
pinned
off
it above
tomorrow
for
if it
everyone.
happens. Yeah. But click on the
I
reminders.
was just going to ask if it's possible to reset the room and have Ian just sort of recap everything if Ian doesn't mind doing
I think
the
we're
work.
good tonight. I think we're good tonight. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't want to draw this thing out too much.
Okay, well, if anyone missed any of it, it's all pinned to the top. The thread's there. You can go read it. You can also listen back once this is done. You'll be able to listen back to the recording.
Piotr, I'll let Piotr go then. We have Joel on stage. And Joel, I know your account got shadow banned as well, and you had a pretty big account in the crypto space. So I'll get Piotr to just comment what he wanted to say, and then we'll go to you, Joel. Go ahead, Piotr.
Yeah, thanks, man. I just, well, a couple of points. So as I say, I was thinking about it just now, and I was like, I've never really felt that censorship. I'm not that, I'm more center right, center, that sort of thing. No, it really has. It's that implicit sort of self-reflection you've got to do. And I was thinking about it when I shared my other point, but I've genuinely been kind of scared, not scared, but sort of conscious about saying certain things or doing certain things, not necessarily only in Twitter, but in real life. And it's that certain degree of what my mother calls walking on eggshells, sort of feeling that that is not okay. And I think this is absolutely a momentous occasion. I probably sound a little bit ridiculous, but I'm kind of raving about this space, dude. So the other thing I just want to say is, kudos to you, Mario. I'm so glad I came across you. I'm so glad I've met so many people in here. This is a fantastic space, and I can't wait for the next one to see what other things that we can, come across as well. And Tom, just an open invitation, but I'd love to have you on to have a conversation about this on my podcast at some point if you're interested. But other than that, thanks to you, Mario.
Sure thing.
Well, Mark, good to see you, brother, and thanks for having me. I've been waiting for the right time to come back on Roundtable, and seeing this drop today, I feel vindicated, and I am incredibly pissed off right now because, a little backstory. I've been on Twitter for 15 years. I got on in May 2007. I was an early proponent of Twitter, was invited to Twitter HQ 3 times up till, I want to say, 2014. Literally wrote the first book on Twitter for Business, Twitter Power, in 2009. 2 subsequent editions of Twitter Power, 2.0 and 3.0. Was a huge fan of using Twitter for Business. I've got 650,000 followers, had more, had a lot of engagement, had a verified account since the very first round of verifications, and had plenty of engagement. And then the 2016 election cycle happened, and all of a sudden, my engagement is going down. I started telling people about it. They said, use the shadow ban tool and check. I use the shadow ban tool. It says I'm not shadow banned. I'm saying, people, I know they're doing something janky in there, and they are somehow silencing my voice. If you look at my account, you'll see hardly any engagement on there. And it's not because my tweets are so bad. It's because you can tell from the impressions I'm not getting engagement. Ian, Tom, Millie, I've been following and engaging with all 3 of you for years now. You probably don't even know that I exist because you probably haven't even seen my engagement with your tweets. Jack Dorsey is a liar. He lied before Congress. He knew we were being shadow banned, and we need to stop lifting him up as some sort of, pioneer, because he is a liar. This woman that was in charge of security, and Yoel Roth, these are bad people that have been censoring and silencing people. They tampered with the U.S. election cycle, and they have been causing harm to their own user base, and I would say to their advertisers, because if you can't get the reach of the people that are actually there on Twitter, guess what? You're not spending your money well. So I'm furious. I'm ranting a little bit, but I just wanted to use this opportunity to say, yay, what we knew all along is true. And I hope the drops that are going to come are going to be more bombshells, because I think there's a lot more bodies that are buried in the Twitter closets.
I wanted to ask about that. The dialogues between Jack and Elon Musk have seemed a little, sometimes they seem okay, and then sometimes they seem a little bit rocky. Ian, have you picked up on that?
The part that's The part that's really rocky, like that tweet where Jack was asking Elon to release all the tweets, that sounded almost like a little bit threatening or menacing. Yeah.
Sorry, I was
Yeah,
tweeting
you know,
something, so I couldn't reply immediately.
Yeah, well, what I will say is I haven't seen you try to interact with me, so I truly believe what you're saying. Like they probably are interfering with our ability to even see who's interacting with us.
I'm
absolutely 100%. I mean, part of one of the most commonly employed features of shadow banning, basically, and it happened to me for about a year. This is actually my second account. My last account was up to about 18 or 19,000 before I just found it to be a fruitless venture because I was completely shut down. I was basically shouting to myself, talking to myself in an isolated forest. So I started from scratch with this one before the same features happened on this one. Thank God my shadow banning started lifting a couple weeks ago. But what happens and what's happening to the gentleman, Sir Lord, still sounds like it's happening to him, is only a fraction of your existing following will even ever see any of your replies to anyone else's tweets. Anyone else, it just won't show up. It won't even be present. Sometimes you'll be able to see. Sometimes you will be able to see those comments if you prompted to press show more in a comment section. But yeah, so that's how severe the shadow banning is for many folks, even still now.
Just for everyone, before we wrap it up, sorry, Joel, just quickly, everyone, just remember, pinned tweet above, and I tweeted it from my profile as well, to set your reminders for the next one. So when we start it, you get notified. You can join us live for the next job. Go ahead, Joel.
I'm just curious what others are seeing on their tweet analytics, because when I pull up a tweet, say from today, I see maybe 1,500 impressions. It says 41 engagements, 7 detail expansions, 1 retweet, 1 comment, 16 likes, which is just not normal for having.
No, I've seen your account when I first saw you tweeting in the early days. When we met, when you interviewed me on your podcast, and your impressions, man, there's definitely a shadow ban. Like my impression for a tweet 5 hours ago about Mark Andreessen joining the show is 121K impressions. So it's
So what people say is, well, your tweets are just bad. I'm like, that's crazy. That makes absolutely no sense at all. When you look at the numbers of followers, and if you go to Twitter Audit to check my follower count, they're 95% real and active accounts. So this is janky, and I've been trying to get Elon's attention too, and of course he's not tweets.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut in, but I was going to say something I do notice about your tweets is, and what I've noticed personally with my tweets is when I tweet a link, it tends to not pick up traction. I don't know why that is. I don't know if there's something in the algorithm.
Oh, that's very common. They don't want traffic to go out of their platform. But I think I've seen Joel's tweets for a long time. They're like even good tweets. Like Joel, have you ever had, just before we move on to final couple of speakers, have you ever had a tweet blow up at all since you got quote unquote shadow banned?
Only if somebody else that is not shadow banned or has a large following retweets it. It does happen, but just today I tweeted a few that she was referring to that had links to outbound sources. Most of the time I don't do that. So if you go to my profile and just look, I tweeted about Artifact and their Nike, latest NFT drop. 7 likes on this thing, hardly any impressions, no images in it, no links to anything. Hey guys, this is par for the course.
I want to interrupt you. There's a little bit of news here right now that's happening. So one of the things that was not really covered in the drop was the fact that direct messages are available for anyone who works at Twitter to view. Okay, and this is highlighted by Marina Medvin. She points out that in the sidebar of one of the Lips of TikTok things, it shows direct messages. Now, Marina asked Elon Musk, what is your position on DMs and user privacy rights? Elon Musk directly just responded to her and said, DMs should be encrypted so that it's impossible for anyone at Twitter to see the public's DMs, just as is the case with Signal or iMessage. So currently, they can read your DMs. So don't send nudes out to people, okay? Don't put your passwords in there. They can read it, all of it. They can see who you're talking to.
Can I undo the nudes that I just sent, Ian? Just
So,
no.
just quickly, guys. So Ian,
How
other
do we
social
unfriend?
platforms are other
Unfortunately
social
not.
are other social platforms. Do you know which ones are encrypted? Does anyone know
Yes,
whether
Signal and Telegram are encrypted. iMessage
WhatsApp is
also.
encrypted as well? No. As far
yes
as I know.
and no. The CIA has a backdoor to WhatsApp. I wouldn't use that for any specific thing, but the rest are just fine.
And other
Even
social
Signal is
platforms.
not 100%.
Yeah, not like all of them 100%, but for the most part, yes, right? Like basically, if the CIA wants to put a tag on your WhatsApp account, they can. There's a backdoor to it. It's pretty well known backdoor.
They can backdoor your device. That's actually the key
exactly.
thing there.
Yeah, that's how they
if
get
they,
into
if
it,
they
right?
want
the
you, they
platform
can get
itself
you.
is safe, but your device is not, right? So,
Guys,
that's the
there's a very timely tweet just now by Elon Musk a minute ago that says DMs should be encrypted. So
Yeah,
that's
I just read that.
Oh, you read that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
I'm
literally
sorry.
just read that. Yeah.
So,
So yeah,
Should be
Ian,
or
just
are?
something he
What does
plans
he
to
mean?
do.
Yeah, my
Well,
apologies, Ian.
Okay, what he plans to do, and he's something that he has talked before. So basically, he wants to make DMs a complete new system, a peer-to-peer system, meaning that if I message you or you message me or somebody else, then it's only between the two people, right? It's not between you and God watching over you, right? And Twitter in this case is playing the role of God, where it can literally monitor anything that you're saying to anybody else, and that's a problem, right? That is a big issue when your DMs are not encrypted. It means that they can read your DMs. Right now, they can do that. So hold off on sending anything private to anybody using Twitter. Just use iMessage for that.
Yeah, that's
so unless
that's
you're on like the
disgusting.
CIA's blacklist or something, in which case, you're kind of screwed anyway. But, otherwise, yeah, if you're just a normal everyday person, you don't have to worry about, somebody snooping the iMessage. They literally cannot read it.
Can I just add something just on the reach side of things? Just something interesting that I've observed is on my account is because I have followers that are both conservatives and liberals, leftists, whatever, all over the place. And I've noticed that as I sort of got more, free speech oriented in my
Your mic, sorry, Catherine, just your mic is a bit echoey.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure why I'm hearing an echo, but I'm not doing anything. So I'll keep it really brief. But I'll just say that as I oh yeah, I'm not hearing the echo anymore. As I've sort of started being a little bit more like free speech oriented and talking about certain subjects that some might deem a little more veering away from sort of the leftist side of things. I've noticed that the reach of my tweets on the left has sort of gone away. So a lot of people are not getting visibility to my tweets on the left. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I wonder if they'll find anything in those Twitter files about that.
Cool. I'm gonna just go before wrapping it up with Tim and Harrison, guys. I see a lot of people messaging. I see a tweet now. Let me retweet it for everyone to see. I just retweeted it. That people are Twitter Spaces is glitching for people again. So if it is glitching, this is streaming on YouTube as well. But we're ending it anyway, so it doesn't matter. Everyone listening, just make sure again. I'll remind you, set your reminders because when I end the space, you probably forget. Set your reminders for the next one, which could be any day when the next drop happens. Also, I'll tweet in a few hours the link to Mark Andreessen's interview, which will be on Tuesday. If you want to set your reminders on that one, keep an eye out for the tweets. Harrison, go ahead, man, and then we'll go to Tim.
So, diving into the analytics of a typical Twitter user, what would they look like for somebody that isn't shadow banned at all? Because I have close to 200,000 followers. We could hit 2,000 or 200,000 if you all follow me right now. But on a typical tweet, I'll only get 5,000 of those 200,000 impressions on my tweets. So what does a typical user look like that's not banned? Because I made a list of all these left-wing users, and they have maybe 20,000 followers and engagement through the roof. They're getting like 500 likes per minute with like no retweets and constantly going viral. One of the big prominent ones I like to think of is like Jeff Tiedrich. He isn't any more prominent than people on the right. What does a typical engagement rate look like for somebody that isn't shadow banned?
Look, I think it depends on too many factors. Does anyone else want to answer this one, Tim? Just very briefly, because I want to give the mic to Kim. He managed to get time again.
Absolutely, yeah. The engagement rate is actually pretty low generally for most accounts. The algorithm is going to serve people what they think they'll like. So, if you change your political sentiments or you post something that's kind of along a viewpoint that is maybe viewed as contrary to like a general leftist viewer, or like what a person on the right would prefer to see, then you'd probably see changes from that. But I think it would take a little bit more statistics to actually look at how these things actually affect the overall social network and the clustering of the way that viewers would be affected. Yeah, I mean, I think this would be an interesting thing to look into. So yeah, but
yeah, I
for
was
sure.
just going to add.
I'll just go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Brian, I'm gonna go to Kim because I know
Sure.
he doesn't have much time. Kim, appreciate you coming back, man. And I know you wanted to say a few things that will take a few minutes, so the mic
No,
is all yours.
Put my thoughts into that now. So what I wanted to say here is now out there for everyone to see, and just read it.
Appreciate it.
I will
Tom, I know
retweet it. Kim, I will retweet it. I'll do it better.
I'll pin it. Yeah, I've just pinned it above for everyone to see as well. Tom,
Yep.
I know you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to answer the question about, I have a bigger than average account. My engagement rate, just eyeballing it, probably averages about 3.5 to 4%. Some obviously pop up, but it's dramatically improved after Musk took over. That's for sure. If you're an active, if you're kind of a leader on Twitter, it strikes me those are the sorts of engagement rates you should be having. But typically, if you're not have a lot of followers and such, 0.5% to 1% would be a pretty good engagement rate. So that's one way to evaluate your analytics.
What's the percentage you gave there, Tom?
If you don't have a lot of followers, I would say 0.5 to 1%. That would be a very good engagement rate for a non-public figure.
And for public figures or higher follower counts?
I'm looking anecdotally at mine. I don't think I'm a brilliant tweeter, but 3.5 to 4%
is average. 2 or 3% is average for like a regular account. So if you're lower than that, then there's probably something weird or your tweets are bad. But yeah, but the important thing actually I forgot to mention was that because Twitter was empowering bots, they're actually like meaning that those, if you're posting particular things or hashtags that those bots want to promote, then those bots are overall going to boost those tweets. So that's essentially the system that was in place, is free play for bots to go and boost things that are of views that are liked, and then active censorship of things that they don't like. And then you have arbitrary people who are lying about it, not telling you that they're picking what things are okay to talk about and not. And that is going to affect everyone's accounts across the board. Like just a complete level of the whole social ecology will be affected by that.
Hey guys, there's a new update on Elon Musk from Elon Musk directly. He said Twitter is working on a software update that will show your true account status, so you know clearly if you've been shadow banned, the reason why, and how to appeal.
Amazing, huge
yes,
news.
He listens.
That's huge.
He listens. This is the biggest change to Twitter.
Other firms need to be paying
major
attention,
news.
I think.
And my wife Kelly just emailed exclusive from Andy Ngo. Barry doesn't name too many names, but the head of Twitter's strategic response team, when secret actions were taken to stifle conservative accounts, happened under Jeff Carlton, who worked for both the CIA and FBI. So this is, Twitter had its fair representation of the deep state working for it.
Oh yeah, and he replied to me.
And
he just replied to me. He just said 100%. When I said, so it's probably not a good idea to send any confidential information over DMs until there's a peer-to-peer encryption system. He said, yeah, 100%. Okay, good one.
Now, I'm really curious as to what legal issues Twitter might now deal with will Twitter deal with Section 230 issues? Will they deal with any litigation or lawsuits? Because, you know, what they're actually kind of pointing out here is that Twitter was acting as a publisher by shadow banning and banning people removing content in the name of misinformation. There were many people that were banned, and they were banned because of posting a certain tweet, which Twitter deemed to be misinformation, only later
Right,
for
it's a
that
violation of
to
Section
be
230.
vindicated.
Yeah, that's like a violation of Section 230, right? I've even, argued this point in probably like a dozen articles on human events when I used to write there. I'm curious as to how this affects, like even Google does this, right? I mean, we had a whistleblower testify to Congress that Google does this exact thing by limiting certain websites from being reached, like the Daily Caller, for example. They used that as an example of a website that was shadow banned essentially from Google from its search traffic, right? You won't find the Daily Wire or the Daily Caller or Newsmax on the front page at all. Like it will always show the Washington Post, New York Times, and some Indian websites for all places. For some reason, they're ranked really highly. So yeah, I mean, it does. I think that Section 230 is fine. The issue is, are these websites, are these platforms like Twitter? Well, not Twitter now, but Twitter before, and Facebook, and all these other sites. Were they in violation of this of the privileges that they had, right? And should they be rescinded? That is a question that the Republican Congress has to ask. Yeah,
I don't think you have a right of action under it.
The government actually uses. So here's the thing: 2030 isn't. It's like the same thing as the Sherman Act, the Antitrust Act, that isn't used unless there's a reason, as in like they don't like what the company is doing. Okay, so it's used as leverage. So 2030 can be used as leverage. So if the social media companies are doing something that the government likes them to do, then they're not going to have any issues. And if they're doing something that the government doesn't like, then they might be like, hey, we might need to change 230, or we might need to use the Sherman Act. I mean, right now they have actively put in the Biden administration. Let's be real. They put in well-intentioned people who wanted to regulate big tech. Okay, they put those people in, and then they use that as an anvil, as leverage over the social media companies, like all of them, Google and Apple included, to be like, okay, they basically have to do what the government wants if they don't want to get regulated. They don't want to be broken up, which isn't something that's functionally possible to do, really, let's be honest. So the situation is, Twitter is not a monopoly, so they don't have an antitrust regulation risk. However, they do have a 2030 regulation risk. And that would require changing 230, which would be opening a can of worms, because then to get everyone to comply with a new regulatory policy, which they don't have, and again, I've been involved in writing some of these things sometimes, so it's like they just don't have, there's no solution for getting out of 2030. But I think it's implicit that Google and Apple are probably not adhering to 2030, and there's actually an issue whether these companies are all common carriers or public utilities, in the sense that they have a responsibility to determine the function of public speech and actually protect First Amendment rights. I would argue that these companies actually have an obligation, because of their importance as civic squares, to protect First Amendment rights. And I think that's why Elon Musk is actually doing what he's doing at great risk, because he sees that this is actually an important issue, or risk, for existential risk of our society and our ability to solve problems together and actually have democracy. So I'm extremely grateful that he's done this. And that's the only reason I got back on Twitter. I hadn't been on social media. I gave up because of shadow bans, all kinds of stuff, for many years until this. So this is a really important
I think you bring about a really interesting point, because if 230 just makes you insulated from being responsible for content that you then publish on your site, right? So if the discussion is that they shouldn't be entitled to 230 immunity, essentially, for being a publisher and not a determiner, then if they were not protected by 230, they could actually be liable for things like what Kanye posted, and the stuff that potentially they're actually. It's interesting. I hadn't really thought about it. The stuff that they are filtering, arguably, they could be in trouble for if they didn't filter.
Yeah, so 230 was put in place because Congress found that the Communications Decency Act pretty much abridged First Amendment rights. So they put 230 in place, and what 230 does is basically say that if you're not a publisher, then you're able, then you can moderate. If you're seen as a publisher, then moderation would be, I'm sorry, it's the opposite. If you are seen as a publisher, then if you're moderating, then that's going to be breaking 230. So every social website out there, whether you're running an internet forum or whatnot, is basically breaking 230, and if they're moderating in any way. It needs to be updated.
Well, not anyway. Basically, you are allowed to have a terms of service, right? And basically, you have to moderate your site because there are other laws, like for instance, COPPA, which prevents children under the age of 13 from using your site. You just can't let them on the site, ideally, right? And if they lie about it, that's a different story. But the site must have these rules. And then there's also a similar rule, which was implemented recently to ban backdoor.com, which is where people would engage in prostitution.
Back pages.
Yeah, back pages and all these other sites, right? Like, so backdoor, back pages. What am I saying?
That could be one too, maybe.
Yeah, right. So there are a bunch of laws that basically oblige Section 230. So it's not a all-encompassing thing, but in general, social media platforms are protected from liability for what their users post on here. So, like for instance, Kanye posting that thing, Twitter's not liable for it, right? Because they didn't post it. However, if Twitter acts as a censor, like censoring political opinions, that's when Congress can actually look at it and be like, you're censoring political opinions. You're acting like the New York Times here. That's a different story. But then, they do enjoy certain other protections, like, Sullivan versus New York Times, 1963, right? So if they're acting as a publisher, then maybe they have that sort of protection. Who knows?
I'll give you the mic, Kim, Ian, Tara. Final words before we wrap it up for the day. Thoughts on the drop so far? How does it compare to the last drop, and what do you expect next time? And for the audience, again, pin tweet and also pin tweet on my profile and pin tweet above for the next space to set your reminders. But yeah, Ian, Kim, Tara, what are your thoughts on what we've seen so far? What to expect next? Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I think this was a big deal. I think that it has confirmed what a lot of us have suspected for a long time now, and have been gaslit into thinking that, this is not happening, or tweets is just not engaging. That's why nobody is following you. This is what the left has said. This is what the media has said. But tonight, Elon proved all of them wrong, proved us right. Right? It basically vindicated all of these complaints that every conservative or anti-war leftist has said for months, for years now. That's a big deal. And also, Elon, after all the Twitter files dropped, he mentioned that they are going to offer full transparency, so you will know how your account is affected, and there will be an appeals process. That is massive. That's like the biggest thing that happened tonight. So that's my takeaway from this. I think the next one is going to be even bigger. We don't know what it is yet, but I'm confident it's going to be bigger. So Tara, you're next, and then after it's Kim.
I think something, based on his latest tweet, something that the media has been saying that now I feel like this sort of takes that away. Excuse me, is that Twitter would just be this free-for-all and a big hate machine, which is absolutely not true. And now he's just admitted that there still will be shadow bans, but you will be given a reason and an account status and an ability to appeal that will be a lot more effective. So I think it sort of shuts down that narrative that the media has been pushing, that Elon Musk is creating this just free-for-all for hate. And also, just to reiterate, hate speech has gone down dramatically since Elon took over.
Kim, I know you got a great thread already, and I pinned it above. Anything else to add?
Well, I think what everyone needs to understand is that this is very common. This is not just Twitter. This is happening everywhere in collusion with the media. And, in my view, it's great that those who've always been saying this now have confirmation and evidence of it. But I think there's a very slim chance everything will change, because the tentacles that are in place are very hard to get rid of. And you will see it in the reaction of the media again. They're just going to play this whole thing down. And I'm not sure if Twitter alone anymore has enough reach and enough power to change it everywhere else. You know, they love the power structure that they have created. They will defend it to their death. And I just think, you know, we're heading down in a very dark path.
Mark, I see you just came up on stage. Appreciate you coming on. I think it's your first time on the panel. What's your thoughts on the drop so far?
This is great. This is the issue I wanted to raise with you guys last time, is the trending module. And I think there's more to be done on this. And those of you who have Elon or Carrie White or Barry Weiss's ear can maybe push on this, because it's not just about people being shadow banned from trending. The trending list drives the news cycle. And so whatever department there is that is inserting topics into the trending list in order to create a self-fulfilling prophecy, to then get people to start tweeting about them, to then give the impression that it's a popular topic, to then get it into the news cycle. I think that's one of the more primary concerns that I have, aside from the unbanning and the shadow banning. I also have a personal request. Elon blocked me maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. I sent the snarky reply to him. So if any of you guys, my blue check pals out there, could just ask him nicely to unblock me, that would be fantastic.
I love your impressions of Brian Stelter, Mark. They're fantastic.
You know, I try to bring a little levity to the madness. Sadly, he's one of the casualties of CNN. He was the only one that I didn't want to get fired over there. So I'm a YouTuber.
Unfortunately, it was the first.
I haven't been using Twitter that much, very much, like tweeting much. I've been sticking to my YouTube. I do lurk and I do watch. I just try to stay away because it just tends to just suck my time in. But you know, I listened to the last call that you guys had with Elon. I thought it was fantastic. I'm excited about it. But again, just for anybody who has, you know, Elon's ear, the trending list is, we all know, Twitter drives the news cycle, and that trending list is what does it. And we know that there were whistleblowers that released some of the data to, I think it was TechCrunch, you know, about how they were shadow banning topics from that list. So there's got to be a whole department in Twitter that is curating that list. And I think that needs to be explored further as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we need to know who their names are.
You've got a really good point there. What I will add to it is, yes, they've been shadow banning topics from that list, but also Twitter allowing for the bot problem. These bot farms can artificially make topics trend by having bots all tweet out.
The New York Times, they did that. Yeah, I mentioned that in the first feed, where in the mornings, and sorry, like, I know this space is supposed to end, but yeah, in the mornings, every time you see a New York Times article trending by the full title, that's because a whole bunch of bots, as well as real accounts, they thunderclap it. I think that's what the app is called, where they all tweet out the same thing at the same time, and that causes a trend to explode. And it's been happening.
Well, obviously, the list.
Oh, you're muted, Mark. Mark?
Oh, yep. Okay, there. No, I'm sure that they have to have some sort of a moderation to prevent that. And I'm sure there are systems in place to prevent that. And there's got to be.
Oh, there isn't. Twitter's terrible. That's why Elon Musk is building it from the ground up, essentially. Yeah. They don't even have a way to check if you're a bot. That's insane.
Well, what's going to be interesting next is, as Libs of TikTok pointed out, her account is still currently placed under all of those restrictions. So these screenshots that Barry Weiss was posting was, you know, just current in the last, you know, I didn't check the date, but very, very current. So he's going to have to unlist all that. And, you know, also too, I don't think I can even sign up. Before you could sign up to have longer videos, to be an advertiser on Twitter, and my account was rejected. So at some point he's going to have to lift all the restrictions. I don't know how he's going to even manage with this, but he should put some sort of a team in place so that we can submit requests, so that Elon isn't the only one basically like fielding all of these requests. Because, you know, as anybody knows, in a big organization, the higher up you get, the more kind of lost and out of touch in a certain sense you become. And so a lot of us have known about a lot of these issues for, you know, no disrespect to Elon, probably a lot longer than him. And we're sitting here clamoring about it. Hey, everybody, look what's going on. So he's sort of on this fast track, you know, crash course catch up in a certain sense. So I think there should be some department and figureheads that he should appoint, so that we could submit requests to them, so that everybody's not just filling his replies with a bunch of requests, you know, directed personally at him.
Cool. I think I'm going to wrap it up now, guys. For the space for the next drop is pinned above. I really enjoy how, Ian, I think we did a pretty good job, Tara. We did a good job in getting, not making it political, and having both sides agree on the issue of censorship. We'll see what Kim says. Are the tentacles just too long for us to be able to get out of this, this world we live in that is, plagued with censorship on almost all platforms, or will Elon lead some sort of movement against it? I'm a bit more skeptical that this will work.
I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I'm really optimistic.
Come on, Mario, be happy, mate.
No, but I just don't think the question. The question is, I'll give you the mic,
Mario. Go broke. Just that's the one thing you have to remember, and everyone sees it in their wallet. And even the movies that are coming out in theaters are being affected. I mean, everyone is going to feel it to the point that it's going to force their hand to have to move this direction.
But it's not the issue I'm talking about humans' inability not to be biased and then enforce that bias over others. Doesn't matter the platform or the political stance. I think it could lean every decade. It could lean one way or another. I just don't think like every single social platform is biased one way or another. And there's going to be employees that are censoring, as long as humans are pulling making the decisions in any company, and there isn't a system that is built in an unbiased way. I just find it, I struggle to find that problem solved on all platforms. I think Twitter could succeed if Elon plays his cards right and it's looking, it's heading in the right direction right now. I just don't see Meta making that change or
it's not about
people need
management. It's about management. You will never be able to resolve this thing fully because humans are inherently flawed. It's about management, and I do think that there's a spectrum that is within the majority of that most people fall within. And I do think that there is a way to effectively manage that. And you don't have to go to such an extremity that you're buying anybody who says even something that remotely hurts your feelings or you don't agree with. So I understand where you're coming from with the biases things, but I think it's more a case of recognizing what things aren't, necessarily going to be offensive to everybody, and don't necessarily have to carry over into all forms of bias, if you know what I mean. It's different types of biases, and I think that is possible to be accounted for.
And people have to remember that what's happening, today it's maybe happening to conservatives, but the idea that the structure can ban or can, manipulate algorithmically content, it could happen one day, one party is in charge or one group or one ideology is in charge, and the next day the same tool can be used against you. So in principle, it doesn't matter who currently has that power. Tomorrow it could be somebody else. So you could principally stand against that.
Your mic, I'm going to jump in, Catherine. Your mic is really difficult to hear you, but I agree. I think it goes both ways. It's just a flaw within humanity that hopefully will systematically resolve. We'll see how that heads. Ian, you're more optimistic. You and Tara are more optimistic, which is great. And I hope you're both right and I'm wrong. And I hope we see change across other platforms.
Or they can go broke. They can go broke, just like IGN. They fired a whole bunch of people today, and I'm like, cool, die already.
Exactly. I just want to thank you again, both of you guys, everyone who came up, the panel of speakers. You guys make sure you set your reminders for Mario's next tweet. It's pinned at the top.
Cool. Love you all. Thank you so much. I'm going to head to sleep. It's 7 a.m. here, so I'm going to go to bed. And hopefully the next drop doesn't happen in another hour, and then Ian and Tara wake me up, and I'm kicking off another place. Imagine, bro.
And he's naked in bed again.
I love you all. Thank you so much, everyone. See you for the next one. Bye, everyone.
Peace out. Bye-bye.